Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium eSports coverage of the third round of Season 2 of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring. The Carlyle Tools by Napa 125 live tonight from iRacing's virtual twin ring Motegi in Motegi, Japan. James Pike here, the voice of Podium eSports, alongside Taylor Burris, our producer Ryan Bauer, and a very special guest this evening. We're joined for tonight's broadcast by the voice of the NASCAR Xfinity Series on Fox Sports, Adam Alexander, on board a Podium eSports broadcast for the very first time. And Adam, you, unlike a lot of the other folks that have been on Podium broadcasts, actually have some experience calling iRacing live. You were the lead on the Wednesday night iRacing broadcast on Fox Sports 1, and Wednesday night iRacing, much like Monday Night Racing, featured a lot of the great car and track combos that you don't necessarily see every day in the biggest of iRacing events. And as we enter tonight's race, I look at this combo, IndyCar's twin ring Motegi, and to me, it really does feel like a combo that would be right at home on a Wednesday night iRacing broadcast.
Well, I was fired up, James, to be a part of this, and I thank you for letting me play along tonight, not only because this is my first opportunity to work with you guys, but because, as you said, IndyCar at Twin Ring Motegi has a special ring to it. We know the history of these cars at this track. I think it's going to be a great race tonight. I'm a huge fan of Kyle Busch in an IndyCar. Really looking forward to watching him go for his second win of the season here tonight at Twin Ring Motegi. Of course, he won a couple of weeks ago at Talladega. It's going to be a fun race.
Kyle Busch and Parker Kligerman, your two winners coming into tonight's race in a still very young Season 2. Kyle with the victory in the opening week at Talladega in the Cup cars. Parker won last Monday night with the trucks at Las Vegas. We go open wheel racing for the first time tonight. And Taylor Burris, I think that means we might see a few new names pop up to the front, and maybe one in particular above all the rest, one who was very excited about coming back to IndyCars, and the man currently on the top of the qualifying charts, the 89 of Nick DeGroot, who also is our defending Monday Night Racing champion.
He certainly is, and the last time that he won an IndyCar was at the hallowed grounds of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, so he's going to be looking forward to coming here at Twin Ring Motegi. But we also got a couple of other IndyCar aces here tonight. Of course, Connor Daly, one of the top drivers who is up in the practice charts, running around the top 5, but a couple of the NASCAR drivers who we know for a fact are running in full-body stock cars, but they know a thing or two about wheeling these open wheels Indy cars around Twin Ring Motegi. Anthony Alfredo, along with Ryan Vargas, some of the fastest cars out on track here tonight during practice.
A lot of big-time names in tonight's race, as is always the case with Monday Night Racing. We'll introduce them to you as we go on through tonight's broadcast. But for now, we turn to opening ceremonies and to two national anthems this evening. Since we are outside of the United States, we honor America with the playing of the Star-Spangled Banner, but we'll also honor Japan with the playing of Kimi Gayo, their national anthem. And for the most famous words in motorsports this evening, we turn to the CEO of the title partner of Monday Night Racing, Tufco Flooring, Mike Case.
Hello, everyone. Mike Case with Tufco Flooring. Tufco Flooring is honored to be the Grand Marshal for tonight's running of the Carlyle Tools by Napa 125 from Twin Ring Motegi. Without further delay, gentlemen, start your engines.
Time to bring you the starting grid for tonight's Carlyle Tools by Napa 125, third race of the season for Season 2 of Monday Night Racing. Nick DeGroot with a 27.823 to take the pole, and Nick, the defending champion, just earned his 1,000th career victory in iRacing earlier this week, so a big milestone in the sim for the 89. He's joined in the front four by fellow Championship 4 competitor from a season ago, DJ Cummings. Look a little bit further back through the top 10. Josh Slate, who's been incredibly active on Twitter in his M&R participation. He'll start 6th. 7th is a man known to a lot of folks, NASCAR Xfinity Series driver for Richard Childress Racing, Anthony Alfredo. Going to try his hand at an IndyCar this evening. Raja Caruth and Gabe Wood, tire changer in the Arca Orange Series, completes tonight's top 10, Taylor.
And if we go a little further, in the 11th position, we will find NASCAR champion Kyle Busch, also race winner at Talladega earlier this season, looking for win number 2 at the season. We go a little further down as we continue on through the field. Kobe Martin, the number 15, he will be starting in the 14th position. In the 16th position, we'll find IndyCar ace Ed Carpenter driving that number 31. Has IndyCar experience, so he knows how to get around here at Twin Ring Motegi. He will be starting in 16th. In the 18th position, we'll also see NASCAR Xfinity Series driver Ryan Vargas in 18th, and then rounding out your top 20 is the owner of Monday Night Racing, Ford Martin.
Got Connor Daly back there in 21st. Look at Parker Kligerman trying to go back-to-back. Won last weekend at the Trucks at Las Vegas, starting 23rd tonight. He's got some ground to make up. Looking forward to him competing with Kyle Busch, the two drivers that have found their way to victory lane this year. That's the top couple of dozen and where they will roll off tonight as we get set for round 3 from Twin Ring Motegi.
Glad to have you all aboard on Podium eSports, whether or not it's Twitter, it's Trovo, it's Twitch, it's Facebook, anywhere you may be. We are glad to have you on board for tonight's Carlyle Tools by Napa 125 as the first of 125 laps gets underway. And we are green flag racing from Japan. And immediately Nick DeGroot will jump out in front and they will fan out 3 and 4 wide behind him. And that is a very stark characteristic, a signifying characteristic, a staple of racing here at Twin Ring Motegi, Taylor. You will see these cars fan out because this track has an incredible amount of width to it.
It certainly does. A lot of room to move around this track, but also a difference of speed. Drivers will be utilizing the runs here to try to slipstream past their competitors, as we see that right now. Balicki takes it to the inside. They'll go side by side for the race lead out of turn 2.
Josh Balicki, driver of the NASCAR Xfinity Series, so someone you know very well, Adam, and running a paint scheme that we've seen Juan Pablo Montoya have some success in open wheel racing in the States with, I think, no?
Well, Balicki's a driver that's known for road course racing out of Wisconsin, right? I remember meeting him a couple of years ago when he made his NASCAR Oval debut at Michigan. He's really gained a lot of momentum in his career, a name that you see more and more working toward the top of the charts in NASCAR, and obviously getting it done in iRacing and various other forms of eSports as he takes over the top spot. Josh Balicki looking good, but it's not over yet. Look at DeGroot going down low.
DeGroot is determined, and I think this car in particular is one that he cherishes maybe above all of the others that you'll see in a Monday Night Racing season. He made the point a few weeks ago when Kyle Busch beat him to the line at Talladega, Taylor, that he had finished second to Kyle Busch twice and had only beaten Kyle Busch once. So, you know, he wants to win, but Nick DeGroot's record in these Indy cars, in particular in Monday Night Racing, absolutely stellar, capped off by the win at Auto Club in these cars in June.
He certainly has, so he knows this is the car that he's always been wanting to focus on when it comes to Monday Night Racing. This is a chance for him to guarantee a spot in the playoffs later on this season, and he's showing his strength here tonight. Currently has about a 1/10 of a second, now 2/10 of a second lead over Josh Balicki as they go down the back straightaway. But another driver who's made a lot of gains tonight, that number 51 in that Rowdy Energy Drink Dallara, Kyle Busch, he has gained from 11th to 4th position in just under 6 laps. So a great start for Kyle right now closing in on the back bumper of DJ Cummings, that number 10.
Note for you all, Ford Martin went around coming out of turn 2 that last time by. But to your point about Kyle Busch, I have to believe, Adam, that he used his experience in the iRacing IndyCar Challenge event here in April to his advantage. He finished 13th that day, and he said last week that he was excited to come back here having run that race as the yellow flag comes out for the first time. Looks like Matthew Stalkinick, I think, in trouble.
Yeah, he'll have to go to the fast reset there, and you see the car coming off of turn 2. And I think you guys agree with me. We thought turn 2, turn 4 would be the trouble spots in this race tonight.
Absolutely, just because this track, for as wide as it is, there are only 10 degrees of banking. In that sense, it profiles very similarly to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And just as it seems like turns 2 and 4 tighten up on the outside at Indy, you get the same sort of effect here at Twin Ring Motegi, Taylor, and I think that might be what happened to Stalkinick.
It certainly was. Also, a little bit of contact happening between him and Covey Martin as they come off of turn number 2, as we can see on the replay. Covey just couldn't get to the inside close enough as we see the contact to that rear tire, to the front tire of Covey Martin out of turn 2, spinning him around. And unfortunately, Stalkinick does have that fast repair where he can get back out on the track, but he is going to be put a couple of laps down before joining on the track again.
Could be maybe 2 or 3 laps down before he gets back on the racetrack. However, we do have 2 laps that you can gain back under the lucky dog here as you look at Connor Daly, who's got that same Chuck Yeager paint scheme that he ran in the Indianapolis 500 back in August, coming down pit road with last week's winner Parker Kligerman, and pit stops early here for these drivers. Adam?
Well, and some of these guys started deeper in the field, and so you try to find a way to get out of balance and gain some track position maybe later in the race. So you get an early caution. You say, hey, let's come down pit now. And when some of the front runners make their pit stop later on, depending on how the cautions fall, a guy like Parker Kligerman maybe gains that track position in a later stint of the race. So this is all about playing the games you need to set yourself up for success later. You know, this is only a 125-lap race, and I say only. I know it's taxing, but because of that, there's not a lot of time to get your work done. So if you can find a way to play the correct strategy, you could get ahead of the 8 ball in that regard and find yourself with some much-needed track position late in the race. And all the conversations we have had leading up, this is a place that gets really tight in traffic. So if you can get out in front of the field, it could play huge dividends.
We'll see how the pit strategy plays out for the drivers who come down towards the back of the field. Connor Daly and Kligerman were the first to currently 21st and back, just about all coming down pit road. As we'll take a moment under the yellow flag to remind you all that tonight's broadcast of Monday Night Racing is brought to you by Tufco Flooring. Tufco Flooring is an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. Tufco doesn't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach, and neither should you. Tufco listens to your needs and requirements and develops custom solutions for every client. And for more information, you can visit their website at tufcoflooring.com. And to the point that Adam made, Taylor, about trying to find advantages via pit strategy, we mentioned that the NTT IndyCar Series came here in their iRacing IndyCar Challenge back in April. One of the very big storylines of that race was the differences in pit strategy between your leaders who went on a 2-stop strategy. And some of the folks a little bit further back of the field, Joseph Newgarden is the one that sticks out to me amongst all the ones that were about 13th and back that day. But they tried to make it on a 1-stop strategy, and it was the 2-stop strategy that ultimately won. But if you time these pit stops correctly and come in under the yellow flag, as we've seen everybody from about 20th on back do, you may be able to stay out a little bit later than some of the drivers out front, may be able to run them down under a green flag, and might be able to hang out for a late yellow, at which point you could come down pit road, get tires again, and have fresh rubber for maybe 1 or 2 final restarts towards the end of this race.
You certainly can try and pull that off, but the thing is, you've got to make sure that we have a long green flag run between now and when the next fuel run will come to an end later on in this race. Now, if we keep having caution after caution after caution, that's not really going to help you out a whole lot, because then these other drivers who are ahead of you will come down, take fuels and tires later on in a later caution. So they have to make sure that they have a long green flag run between now, probably around lap 50 to lap 60, to see if they can make it all the way to the end. So that is going to be the key for those drivers who are 20th on back, who came down this time under caution to get tires and fuel.
if you're splitting this race up perfectly into thirds, you're coming in on lap 42 and lap 84. However, with the way the caution flags fall, it could be very different. But I suspect, Adam, that if this race pans out like we've seen in that iRacing IndyCar Challenge event and in a lot of the official races that we see when iRacing's 13-week series come here to Twin Ring Motegi, that you usually do get an early yellow flag or two, but the vast majority of the race ends up being a lot of green flag racing in the middle and a lot of really good battles throughout the field.
Couple of things I want to watch on this restart. Number one, the guys that made pit stops, we'll say somewhere from 20th on back, that have those fresh tires and what kind of ground they're able to make up early in this next green flag stint. Also want to keep an eye on Anthony Alfredo, restarting 7th after starting the race outside the top 10. How good is he after making early gains? And of course, we've talked about him, Kyle Busch, and Taylor touched on this. Qualified 11th, made his way to 4th very quickly. Kyle is someone you have to watch on this restart. And hey, Josh Bilicki got the lead for a short period of time. Can he get to Groot on the restart? It's going to be a good one.
Watch for the toe. Watch for the way these Indy cars draft off of one another. That'll be a good telling sign as to whether or not Bilicki can retake the lead from DeGroot in short order. As we're back under green flag racing in this Carlyle Tools by Napa 125. And just as you said, Adam, there goes Bilicki with the draft off the rear of DeGroot to the outside. He'll go Taylor Burst and try and take the lead out of turn 3.
He will try to go to the outside off of turn number 3 and 4, but can't quite seem to get that toe needed to pull away and get into the inside. Meanwhile, the battle for third position, Kyle Busch was able to slingshot around DJ Cummings around in turns 3 and 4 to get third position. But with those two cars battling Bilicki and DeGroot, that's going to only cause Kyle Busch and Cummings now to close in that gap and start to make it a 4-car battle for the race lead.
And a fun fact for those unaware, Kyle Busch has a NASCAR-style rig set up in his home, which also means that he has a NASCAR-style shifter. So most of these IndyCar drivers are used to paddle shifting, but Adam, Kyle Busch is running almost 80 styles. We have another yellow flag, and we would talk a little bit more about that shifter. We'll probably get more into the details of just how difficult it is to shift Indy cars with a proper H-pattern gearbox, but we'll take a look at the yellow flag, see what happened again. There were a few incidents, Taylor, over in turns 3 and 4 to bring out the yellow flag this time around.
Yeah, taking a look to see what happened with that incident caution, I believe, as we take a look at the replay. Looks like Stalkinet had an issue as well, but looking at the instant replay right now, it happened off of turn number 2. Once again, one of the danger zones that we just brought out. Jeff Green looks like he gets a little bit too tight off corner exit and is able to maintain his race car through there, but as they go into turn 4, just trying to see what the situation was that caused that incident. Out right there, you'll see one of the cars goes off and then more contact. Jeff Green makes hard contact to the inside barriers as more cars as well involved in that incident. I can't quite catch the other number who was in front of him, but a major incident, about 4 cars involved on that incident here on early on.
There was that incident. There was also Gary Sexton, who went around Dylan Welch and Sexton making contact in the middle of the corner. And Welch just got caught up in the marbles. And I think for as wide as we talk about this track being mentally, I think, Adam, you have to treat turns 3 and 4 as much narrower corners than they appear, because the racing line really does narrow up. Over in 1 and 2, you can get away with about 3 lanes of racing, but over in 3 and 4, it's maybe 2 at best before you start sliding up out of the rubber and ending up into the marbles and potentially into the fence like Gary Sexton just did.
And I've got to imagine, to a certain extent, you get suckered in 1 and 2 because it is such a longer turn that you have time to get things ironed out should you have some form of an issue. In turns 3 and 4, it is so narrow. Once you start making that arc in turn 3, you better figure out how you're going to get off of turn 4. And so I think the mentality and the way you drive this place has got to be totally different in turns 1 and 2 versus turns 3 and 4, and we said it earlier. We've had 2 cautions now, 1 in turn 2, 1 in turn 4. Those are the trouble points when it comes to Twin Ring Motegi, and Josh Bilicki now going to have an opportunity to handle things from the race lead. It was interesting. Kyle Busch got by Cummings for 3rd. I thought Cummings might have gotten back by him right as the caution was coming out. That appears to not be the case. So Kyle Busch from 11th to 3rd. We haven't had a ton of opportunities opportunities under the green flag. And so Kyle is someone now that's going to be a part of that lead mix.
Kyle, I think, a very strong threat. He and DeGroot have had all kinds of success in the IndyCars in Monday Night Racing. Kyle's got an IndyCar victory to his name as well. It's worth noting. So we'll keep an eye on those two. But Taylor, I think, especially as someone who appreciates 80s racing in particular, and I think the era in which we saw standard shifting in open wheel race cars with those H-pattern gearboxes really prevalent. You go back to the days of Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost in Formula One. Do you have a sense, and can you explain to everybody watching at home, just how difficult it is to shift these cars in comparison to today's Indy cars where it's all paddle shifting, especially when you're at a track like Twin Ring Motegi, where you are downshifting multiple times on the entry into turn 3? Come back to Taylor in just a moment, but plenty of fun, I think, to be had across this group. And I think, Adam, it speaks to Kyle's talent as a driver that you've got so many folks that are used to going with the pedals on the back of the wheel and used to just knocking maybe 2 fingers and going somewhere. But Kyle just going to go for it old school because that's the kind of racer I think he is more than anything else.
But I think it speaks to who Kyle is as a racer overall. If you go back, it's March 13th, NASCAR's heading to Atlanta. We think we're going to see Kyle on track that night running in the Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series. Of course, as we know, everything got postponed. We go to this quarantine. The pandemic is well underway in the U.S., and that means all at-track racing is halted. And so this iRacing thing picks up. And Kyle comes out of the gate and maybe wasn't where he wanted to be. To see the progression that he has made, and not just in NASCAR, running a cup car or a truck where we would anticipate he's going to be good. You talk about his success in IndyCar. I saw him run late models on dirt in some of the Wednesday night iRacing events that we had on FS1. It just speaks to who he is as a racer. And all day long today on social media, he was supporting this race and promoting it. It's hard to imagine that a NASCAR champion, a 2-time Cup champion, is involved in the racing community like Kyle is. But that's a huge asset for everyone, I think, that follows motorsports across the board.
I think it speaks to his love of racing, too, more than anything else, and the power of iRacing as a program that has its roots back into some of the earliest racing games of the 1990s that were far, far less complex than this. But you can trace it back to some of the very, very beginnings of computer racing. And when you see how much this program has developed in the last 25 years, I think it says volumes that folks like Kyle can jump in who know what it's like to do this in real life, who expect to be able to compete like they can in real life. And everything, for the most part, translates neatly and nicely in iRacing. It's just how sophisticated and complex the program is, as we'll get set for the restart, which will come on lap 18 of 125. It is Bilicki ahead of DeGroot and then Busch in third, and everybody pinned up along the wall, Taylor, to make sure that no one gets that run on the outside, leapfrog somebody as they get to turn 1.
Yeah, some drivers may try to do that, but unfortunately here, everyone's pretty smart. Make sure that they hug that outside wall to prevent no one from making the pass, because you can't pass to the inside before you cross the start-finish line. Otherwise, you will be penalized. But as we keep an eye on the battle up for the race lead right now, Kyle Busch, Nick DeGroot, and Josh Bilicki, 3 cars under a blanket as they go through turns 3 and 4. DeGroot trying to work that outside groove. Hasn't come into play just yet for him, but as he goes to the inside, Bilicki will try to throw the block as they enter turn 1. Kyle Busch will go to the very top side of the racetrack, but cannot get the run.
To the top, to the bottom, he tried to get a run off of Bilicki's machine and just got tight behind the rear wing of the 53, so he'll have to settle back, and DeGroot will go down to the bottom to block Bilicki. And it's not the first time we've seen that tonight. I don't think that'll be the last time we see that tonight, Adam. The question will be, how much more pronounced do those blocks get, and how much closer to the apron do these drivers go as we get closer to the checkered flag?
And how long does Kyle Busch stay patient? Because I think right now he's been comfortable to ride back there and pick off a position here and there. I think we're seeing him turn it up right now as he goes to the inside of DeGroot, trying to make the pass per second off of turn 2, and then he'll be going for the race lead. And this racing for DeGroot and Busch opening the door for Bilicki to create some comfort. Maybe not. Here comes Kyle Busch to second.
Kyle Busch already to P2, and I think Bilicki may run into the same problem that we've seen in the first 2 weeks of Monday Night Racing, where this is a car and track combo that is not conducive to letting the leader get away by a second or a second and a half. They're not going to be all that separated from one another, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Busch gets a decent show off into 3, but he's right there on the rear wing of the 53 already, Taylor.
He is. Kyle Busch is going to try to get to that back bumper, see if he can utilize the air and push Bilicki up the racetrack in order to try and complete the pass. It's going to be a little difficult because of the aerodynamics of these Indy cars. It's so aero-sensitive that it's hard to try and get to the inside or get a pass completed on your competitors in front of you. Right now, as Kyle Busch is trying to find a way, he'll try to take a peek with this long run down the back straightaway. He gets a good run, but can't quite get it. Actually washes up the racetrack through turns 3 and 4. He's got to keep an eye out on Nick DeGroot, who could gain some ground on him as they go down and catch up to some lap traffic up ahead.
Yellow flag out once again, though, and this time it is for one of our Championship 4 contenders from a season ago, DJ Cummings in the 10 machine with a nasty incident over by turn 1. 2 more drivers involved as well. It looked like there was contact with the 48 of Josh Schlate, who just rode up the racetrack. It was almost identical to what we saw between Scott McLaughlin and Oliver Askew back in the iRace IndyCar Challenge in April, where Askew got that run entering turn 3, and the car just tightened up on him underneath the 10 machine that was already running in the middle of the racetrack. And when it tightens up on you, it's very, very difficult to catch it the way you need to make sure you don't run into someone. And that's about the 3rd time we've seen this happen already, Adam, just in the span of 20 laps.
Well, and you hate this for Cummings because he had spent so much time in the top 5. In fact, we were talking on that last restart. Is he in front of or behind Kyle Busch? Because they were battling for 3rd when we got that second caution flag. And now to see him in a position like this, it's going to be an uphill climb as the night moves on. I think this is going to be a little bit of the reality. We're starting to see a theme here. We get 4 or 5 laps into a run, and then boom, there's a big one, whether it's off of turn 2, off of turn 4. And I think that's when guys start to develop that confidence, gets a little racy, and then back to what Taylor said earlier, they realize they've run out of room and can't make the move that they were hoping to make. And we'll see if we can establish a long green flag run here, but so far we've been unable to get much more than 6 or 7 laps under green before we have a caution.
So we'll work our way under yellow in this Carlyle Tools by Napa 125. James Pike, Taylor Burris, and the voice of the NASCAR Xfinity Series on Fox Sports. Adam Alexander here in the booth to bring you all the action on Podium eSports tonight as we continue our coverage of Season 2 of Monday Night Racing as Cummings comes down pit road. And I guess if you're any one of our competitors at the front of this field, Taylor, what's your mindset if you're Bilicki, if you're Busch, and if you happen to be the 99 of Raja Caruth from Lowline Racing? Raj is somebody who I think has to be incredibly excited to be in this spot.
He certainly is. I mean, look at this opportunity of racing with some of the biggest names in motorsports here tonight, and he's right behind a NASCAR champion. And then, of course, not only a couple of spots back, he's dealing with an IndyCar favorite, Ed Carpenter. So look at the pedigree of racing that 99 of Raja Caruth is dealing with tonight. I mean, an opportunity he will never forget.
Raja, I think, Adam, may have the best balance of real life and sim racing experience out of just about anybody in this field, maybe save for Anthony Alfredo. We know about his exploits, especially down in the lower touring series of NASCAR and the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series with Max Siegel and Rev Racing. He got his first career win at Greenville Pickens Speedway earlier in the fall this year, but he also is a driver for Richmond Raceway Esports Development and Lowline Racing here on iRacing, and has made multiple charges to try and get into the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, the top level of sim racing that NASCAR offers in iRacing. So he's a driver that knows how to get it done both inside the car and inside the sim too.
And I think he's a young driver, James, that understands racing and being a successful race car driver is much more than just what you do behind the wheel. It's so much what you do away from the track, whether it's sim or it's the actual racetrack itself. And he really has done an unbelievable job with social media. He's a young guy. He understands it's second nature to him. But I think he's done a great job with social media of building his brand, getting his name out there so that when he enjoys success on track, it gets to the masses, and he's got quite a following, and so I applaud him for doing that. I saw Will Rogers pop up on the scoring monitor a moment ago. Here's another young driver that was a part of the NASCAR Next program that does a nice job of promoting his brand and getting out there on social media, which opens the door for sponsors, marketing opportunities, which in turn can give you opportunities in the race car. Those are two really good young drivers that understand the big picture.
We know that Rogers has his deal with Space Station Gaming as he tries to bring them to the forefront of sim racing. And I have this vision only because he tweets about it so much that Rogers is a particularly big fan of Alan Silvestri's Avengers soundtracks. And I have this image, Taylor, of him sitting under yellow, listening to the Avengers theme as he gets ready to go, just to mentally sort of set the stage, the mood for the charge that he wants to make on a two-time NASCAR Cup Series champion and Xfinity Series driver in the first and second positions.
Of course, that's a good way to pump him up, get the blood flowing, getting ready to go green flag racing here momentarily. That's one way to get things going, but we'll have to see how he's going to deal with this pressure. A lot of eyes are going to be watching him tonight with this race to see what he can do against some of the biggest names in motorsports. So we'll see what he's able to do here momentarily, but I'm pretty sure he's going to give these pros a run for their money once we take the green flag.
Lights are off on the pace car, so we'll get the green when they come back around to the start-finish line. It will be lap 27 of 125 in this Carlyle Tools by Napa 125 that we will run. And we shall see whether or not these front three make it a battle amongst themselves, or if the NTT IndyCar Series Ed Carpenter can say something about it. We haven't talked about him at all tonight, and yet here he is sitting in the fourth position. And we're going to talk about a driver who knows ovals and IndyCars very well, Adam Alexander. I don't think anyone has more experience in this field than the man behind the 31 car.
And I think he's one of the first drivers on fresher tires. He might have been a part of that group that pitted on that first cycle of the night. We'll see if it pays dividends here. We know Carpenter's great when it comes to experience, and a great battle up front. Look at this.
Unbelievable stuff between Bilicki and Kyle Busch and Rajah Carew, who wasted absolutely no time to get to the inside of the 51 machine as Carpenter waits in the wings, and Matthew Stallknecht, who's had a great start to the Monday Night Racing campaign in Season 2, he's there at the top 5 as well, Taylor.
He certainly is. A great run for Stallknecht, but Caruth had a little bit of issues in the middle of turns 1 and 2. Got loose after he goes below that white line. You can't do that with these IndyCars. If you go below that white or yellow line in the corners, you will easily wash the car up the racetrack, or worse, spin your car out of control. So he cannot be doing that. He's got to try and take his time, find a better opportunity to make the pass as they come out of turn 2 right now. James, it's going to be a tight battle for these three.
Tight at some point, but they've actually spread out a good bit amongst the top 5, and then there's a good gap back to Parker Kligerman, who won last week in 6th. And this is about where you start seeing some of the battles. You go back to Dylan Welsh in 7th, the Carmel, Indiana native, Seth Eggert in 8th, Nick DeGroot in 9th. This is where the raciness is beginning to come, and I see DeGroot, who's only on 6 now 7-lap-old tires, already making his charge back to the front. Adam, no surprise that one of MNR's most accomplished drivers is aggressively trying to get back to the lead.
Interesting to me that the three dominant cars tonight, Bilicki, Kyle, and DeGroot, all kind of had a different thought process when it came to that third caution of the night. Bilicki and Kyle said, we're going to stay out, maintain track position. DeGroot pitted, and I thought that was dangerous because, as we know, racing through the field can be tough tonight. We've seen 3 early cautions, but DeGroot wanted those tires, and here he is, as you said it, already back inside the top 10 and trying to get around Anthony Alfredo for 8. That yellow machine is fast.
Content editor from motorsports.com with a friend behind him in the 47 of Connor Daly, who has a vast array of experience in multiple disciplines, but of course he's best known for his exploits in the NTT IndyCar Series. Another driver who I think he's going to have a good run tonight, and someone who jumped into this specifically for this race because ovals and IndyCars are Connor's wheelhouse in the sim. We know he's had his fun with James Hinchcliffe, Alexander Rossi in the Monday Night League that they run in iRacing, and he's no stranger to iRacing either, Taylor.
He certainly is not. The man has a lot of experience here, and of course also participated in several of the NTT iRacing Challenge, IndyCar challenges here during the off-season when we were under COVID watch. So he knows his way around this track, and he has put on a great performance, currently running in the top 10 as he's trying to keep up with Nick DeGroot, the former champion, as they go down the back straightaway. But also another driver who's having a good run, who I've been watching, Dylan Welch. He didn't have the best two starts of the race earlier this season at Talladega and at Las Vegas, but he's putting on a great performance right now, running in 8th, trying to hold off the former champion as they go down into turn 1. DeGroot looks to the outside. Welch will maintain that inside line, gets on the white line. Careful, though, not to do that. Otherwise, he will lose the momentum, which he does, allowing DeGroot with the fresher tires to get around on the outside.
Dylan Welch, someone that you know very well, Adam, son of Vince Welch, Fox Sports, who we know you two get along pretty well, and someone who also runs a lot of midget car races on the dirt too. But between the midgets and the open wheels, those are two things that those of us in the motorsport community know that it's a little bit different when you're talking about those cars in Indiana. And can you give us a sense of just how important open wheel racing is to native Hoosiers compared to the rest of the country?
Think about it. Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon, Ryan Newman. I mean, the list goes on and on of drivers who grew up racing not only from Indiana, but just throughout the Midwest. And now we have our fourth caution of the night. Big one for Noah Lewis in the 98.
Noah Lewis, Michael Massey involved over in turn 2. We'll take a look at the replay momentarily and see what happened, but a big mess, and it looks like Lewis just split the apron on the entry into turn 1. Got loose, and then looks like there was contact and a little bit of help from Kyle McFadden in the 3 car, and then nowhere to go for him or for Ron Capps or for the 30 of Jason Keffer either. One more car that got caught up in the back of it, the one of Gabe Wood, just snuck underneath some of the wrecking cars who bounced and somersaulted their way through turn 2, but a messy one to bring us back on the yellow once again, Taylor.
It certainly was. We just talked about it. Don't go below that white line in the corners. Otherwise, you will have that same fate that Noah Lewis had. So he had some difficult time. He will come down pit road. I think he's already used his fast repairs already early on due to some other incidents he was involved in. So we'll have to keep a track to see if he's able to continue racing here with that damage that he has. But looking at it right now, it's not going to be good. He's going to need some help on pit road right now.
A lot of cars coming down pit road, including Kligerman and Busch and Company, or Balicki rather, and Busch Company. Looks like a good chunk of the top 10 entering and come down for service and try and get some fuel and tires underneath their Indy cars. But while they stop for fuel and for tires, we will take a moment to remind you all that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Carlyle Tools. Named after one of the founding members of Napa and Automotive Hall of Fame inductee Carlyle Frazier, Carlyle Tools is the professional tool line of Napa Auto Parts. Built with superior technician quality and designed with input and feedback from industry technicians, Carlyle Tools provide the professional tradesman with affordable, high-performance equipment that is dependable in the harshest of work environments. All Carlyle Tools come back by a lifetime warranty, and you can visit your local Napa Auto Parts store or visit CarlyleTools.com to purchase your newest set of Carlyle Tools today. Carlyle Tools by Napa. Tools that last. Under the yellow flag at Twin Ring Motegi in the Carlyle Tools by Napa 125 once again. And Matthew Stolkenet out in front. And Taylor, I'll turn to you just because this is a driver who, if you haven't had the chance to watch Monday Night Racing over the first 2 weeks, you may not know a lot about Matthew Stolkenet, but he's had a very strong start to the season. He is tops amongst drivers in points who have yet to win a race. He's 6 clear of defending champion Nick DeGroot coming into this evening, and he's been top 5, top 10, both at Talladega and Vegas. He was right in the thick of things at Talladega. He was there at Vegas too. Matthew Stolkenet is taking this knowledge of iRacing to the next level and really looks comfortable in a lot of different cars. Looks like a genuine threat for the title early on.
He certainly is, and I'm kind of wondering to see what he can do as we progress through this season with Monday Night Racing. Of course, we're running Indy cars here tonight, but we've got a wide variety of other cars that we're going to be out here trying out, and I'm pretty sure with how the skill and talent that Matt Stolkenet has this so far these past 3 races, I'm pretty sure he's going to have something up his sleeve to where we could see him in victory lane for one of these races later on in the season. But right now, doing a great job here tonight at Twin Ring Motegi. And of course, like we brought out, is the highest driver without a win in the points, running in 3rd. So a great job for him.
Also with that fantastic eNASCAR paint scheme, or I suppose livery if we're talking open wheels here. The manager of marketing communications at NASCAR and someone who works alongside DJ Cummings in that big tower in uptown Charlotte. Cummings with the early trouble, but we've seen those two work together in their Harris Lou designed cars. We know the champion of the Fox Body Mustangs usually is in the audience Monday Night Racing, so we'll send our hello to Harris once again. But we'll also keep an eye on the man behind Matthew Stallknecht, Adam, Parker Kligerman, who won the Monday Night Racing Indianapolis 500 back in May, that first race that featured the Indy cars in Season 1 of Monday Night Racing. So, much like Nick DeGroot, much like Kyle Busch, you're looking at sort of Vegas odds favorites to win tonight. I think we'd be remiss to count out the 77.
What I think of, what I see Parker Kligerman changes on an annual basis. Years ago, when I first broke into covering NASCAR, he was running in the ARCA Racing Series for Team Penske. Of course, he was a test driver for Roger for many years on the NASCAR side, made the transition after running some truck races to doing the television thing, has been outstanding for NBC in that regard as a pit reporter and an analyst. And now doing a lot of eSports. And I think that he's someone who is very versatile, and he's a great racer. I mean, doesn't matter what he shows up in races for real. He's always competitive, even though the equipment may be a cut behind some of those he's racing around. When it comes to eSports, it's pretty well straight up, and we see the results. You talked about the win last weekend at Las Vegas. Didn't qualify great tonight, but some early pit strategy. They've established that track position that we talked about, and he's going to be second on the restart here. That 77 could very well go back-to-back.
Could very well go back-to-back and take the points lead as well. He's already got a spot in the All-Star race that will come in February featuring the Super Late Models of Bristol, but he certainly wouldn't mind adding another victory in Monday Night Racing to his resume. As Stallknecht leads us back to green, lap 40 of 125 up on the board as Kligerman and DeGroot and Daly up there. Taylor Burris, that is a fearsome quartet of drivers with IndyCar experience both in real life and in sim.
It certainly is, and notice what Stallknecht did on that restart. He dove right down towards that pit wall, preventing anybody such as Kligerman or Nick DeGroot to get a run on him on the inside as they come across the start-finish line. This is a great opportunity and great heads-up driving for him. He's still going to do it as they come down the front straightaway once again to prevent Kligerman or DeGroot to get that run that they need entering turn one. So a smart driving for Stallknecht early on in tonight's race.
For those uninitiated with IndyCar racing, what you're seeing Stallknecht do is also referred to as snaking. It's the practice of coming off of the corner on corner exit and driving all the way to the apron and then coming back up to the wall to make sure that you get a proper apex into the next set of corners, in this case turn 3 and 4. And the idea with snaking is to try and break the draft, as you said, Taylor, to make sure that the cars behind you don't get the gigantic toe off of your rear wing. We know how aero-sensitive these cars are, especially in comparison to the stock cars that we're traditionally used to seeing as Kligerman jumps to the outside of the group to try and take over the second position. But if you can snake properly, it can pay off. We saw it happen last year at the Indianapolis 500, Adam. Simon Pagenaud spent about all of the last 20 laps snaking ahead of Alexander Rossi to keep the 27 at bay and pick up his maiden Indy 500 victory.
James, you say snaking. The first thing I think of is the Indianapolis 500 and going down the back straightaway and into turn 3 and watching that lead car and how they move back and forth and managing the traffic behind him. And I think Stallknecht has done this as well as anybody tonight because we've not seen the leader pull away like he has. Now, part of that might be the fact that DeGroot is dogging Kligerman for second. And don't look now, but Connor Daly is a part of this top 4.
Who's about to make the point, if you didn't make it, that I think Stallknecht's been helped a little bit by Kligerman and DeGroot and Daly fighting as Kligerman lost the air on the front of his car, got very tight on the exit of turn 2 that last time by. So Daly will have the opportunity to complete the pass on the outside and should on the exit of turn 4, unless he gets tight on corner exit and just about smack the fence, but he'll go up to P3, Kligerman back to 4th. And 5th place, another driver from the NASCAR Xfinity Series that we've not said much about tonight, but has quietly made a charge. How about Ryan Vargas in the 6th car, Taylor?
He certainly is on a great run tonight. Of course, one of those drivers who is doing well in NASCAR Xfinity Series, driving for JD Motorsports, as now trying his hand in IndyCar, as he's in a great battle with the 21 of Max Kennan. He'll look to the outside and holding position as they go down the front straightaway. Kennan will try to take a peek to the inside, but can't quite pull off the pass, as we see a couple of cars in front of him, Connor Daly and Kligerman snaking their way down the front straightaway to prevent any passing going on between the two of them.
And to a point that you made a few times tonight already, Adam, we want to talk about drivers who not only understand how to blend iRacing and real-life racing, but I think also understand where the marketing of iRacing and real-life racing is going in the future. The entirety of Vargas's partnership with TikTok, he got the chance to run the last 6 races of the NASCAR Xfinity Series season for JD Motorsports at the tail end of this campaign. And that, to me, seems like a very, very, very sort of bellwether partnership that I think points very, very much towards the future of what we're going to see and the kinds of partnerships that we're going to see between drivers and companies in the Xfinity Series over the next 10, 15 years.
And I don't think it can be lost, James, the TikTok deal, not just on what that does for someone like Ryan Vargas and the team he's driving for in JD Motorsports, but what that does to bring more eyes to NASCAR as we go through this youth movement, not just with drivers, but trying to secure the younger fan base. So I think his deal with TikTok played a big role in many ways that could grow the future of the sport. And, you know, we talk about drivers that get it done in the car and out of the car. One of them, Anthony Alfredo, we saw him spin there as we were talking about Vargas on the front straightaway. He got it going in the right direction. No caution. Bad break, though, for the 33.
Tough break for Anthony Alfredo and for Brendan Beaudoin, who lost it out of turn 4, and he was a victim of a point that we hadn't had the chance to make tonight, but one that was on the list. Just with the way you exit turn 4 in these cars, this front straightaway has 3 degrees of banking, but it is very, very flat. It almost seems like it's flatter than the 3 degrees it's officially listed at, Taylor. And if you don't exit the corner correctly, if you come over the transition onto the front straightaway, out of the banking, out of turn 4 incorrectly, you can loop yourself down to the inside and put yourself in trouble the same way Gary Sexton has as we go under the yellow flag once again.
Unfortunate for Gary Sexton. He was running inside the top 15 before that incident for him, unfortunately. But yeah, that's the big thing right there, is making sure you get on the transition off corner exit properly. As we watch the replay there, you see the issue with Sexton and a couple of other drivers. Looks like Will Rogers as well, who's been struggling tonight in these Indy cars at Twin Ring Motegi. And as we see, they'll come down pit road, get a fast repair, and rejoin the track momentarily as you're on board right now with the 65 of Will Rogers. As you see, he gets a little bit loose from the aero push that he received from Gary Sexton, slaps the wall a little bit right there, and then major contact, end over end a little bit, and then sits right on top of the pit wall right there. So he sticks the landing, and he will come down pit road to get that car repaired.
I think for Rogers, I think for Sexton, unless my eyes deceive me, Adam, that's exactly what happened. They just got back on the gas a little bit too early on corner exit out of turn 4 and looped themselves around and down into the inside retaining wall.
But something to make a note of here, that's about as long a green flag run as we've had tonight. In fact, I don't officially have the stat, but I will say that is the longest. And this is what I was curious about. What's that going to do to impact strategy? A number of these guys have been out for a while, and here comes a whole host of the front runners making pit stops with 75 to go.
Most of the front runners making pit stops, but one very notable name has decided to stay out, and it is the 51 of Kyle Busch, who will assume the race lead on the restart as the rest of the leaders come down pit road, Taylor.
Indeed, another driver who also decided to stay out, another driver who's been battling all night for the race lead early on, Josh Bilicki and Rajah Caruth. They're going to stay out along with Ed Carpenter and Joshua Slate. So the top 5 that's going to take it over once we go back green flag racing, those are going to be the ones to watch. And I'm pretty sure Ed Carpenter, Rajah Caruth, they're wanting to say if they can get into the mix between Bilicki and Busch when we go back green flag racing.
Everybody out of pit road with not too many issues. Nick DeGroot leads the group off of pit road ahead of Matthew Stahl Connect, and they will blend in from about 7th on back. We'll take a quick break here on Podium eSports, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more coverage of the Carlyle Tools by Napa 125 and the Indy cars from iRacing's virtual Twin Ring Motegi.
For years, people had to get professional tools off of a truck.
That's me.
But we know that tool trucks only come around maybe once a week.
You want to go check out what's in my van?
Now Dave knows that his Napa Auto Parts store delivers parts multiple times a day to his shop, and they carry the professional line of Carlyle tools. Carlyle offers quality tools with a lifetime warranty on his hand tools and a significant savings over mobile tool trucks. And you can forget about the weekly payments and expensive finance charges.
Just pay me, every week for the rest of your life.
Carlyle Tools, as close as your local Napa Auto Parts store.
Welcome back to Podium eSports coverage of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring. The Carlyle Tools by Napa 125 tonight for the virtual twin ring Motegi. James Pike, Taylor Burris, and Adam Alexander, the voice of the NASCAR Xfinity Series on Fox Sports, with you in the booth tonight as we roll under the yellow flag in this Carlyle Tools by Napa 125. And, of course, a big thanks to our friends at Carlyle Tools and Napa for all the work that they've done. Their man, Ron Capps, not having the greatest of nights, running in the 27th spot, but carrying a paint scheme very similar to what Alexander Rossi runs in the NTT IndyCar Series. And I figure if there's anyone that you want to draw some inspiration from, the aggressiveness of Alexander Rossi. I go back to last year's Indy 500, Adam, and I think of the one restart, I want to say it was about 3/4 of the way in where Rossi just decided to own the outside lane and pass about 10 different cars. Capps is on fresh tires, so I won't put it past him to potentially make that same kind of run. Channel the spirit of Alexander Rossi and jump up a few spots, and all of a sudden you can find yourself in the top 10 very quick.
There's one thing I've learned in iRacing with the funny car champion, Ron Capps, and that is he's not afraid, he's not intimidated, he's willing to let it hang out. We saw him race everything, wing sprint car, non-wing sprint car, late model. We did some off-road trucks. He was a part of that. He's not scared, and I'd love to see that fearless attitude come out here on a restart.
I think Ron has been one of the best champions from the get-go, in particular, right at the beginning as everything began to shut down back in March, Taylor. Ron was so willing to drive so many different things that weren't a funny car because, of course, iRacing doesn't have drag racing yet. So in order to find a home, Ron almost had to go out and explore these other disciplines of racing. And explore, I think he has. As Adam said, we've seen him run just about anything with four wheels in iRacing that's available. Over 90 tracks and cars you can pick up as you go get yourself an iRacing subscription. Ron's taken full advantage of them throughout these last few months.
He certainly has, and then come to think of it, looking at his past history with iRacing, he used to compete in also the all-star races that iRacing used to host back early on before everything happened of COVID. We saw him racing in Xfinity cars to all the other forms of racing that we see here today on iRacing. Ron Capps has been there since the beginning, and he's never looked back, and it's always been a fun fan favorite to watch here on the iRacing service, competing in all these disciplines of racing. And he's going to show that here tonight when we go back green flag racing with those fresh tires.
And that green flag racing is going to come back momentarily. Lap 55 to go up on the board. Kyle Busch and the Rowdy Energy Indy car. That 51 number, maybe a little bit different look for the car that he's got, but he'll go to the front. How about Raja Caruso immediately getting down to the inside of Josh Bilicki? Got a great restart and wasted no time at him to get to P2.
And these are drivers that are on a little bit older tires than De Groot, who restarted in the 6th position. So the balance of this run is going to be really, really interesting. Bilicki looking to the outside of Caruth, and Kyle Busch continuing to hold them off.
Caruth hanging tough there, the man with the sim racing and the real racing experience. But you could say the same about Josh Bilicki, and maybe no surprise then that those two are near the front of the field. Josh late there in the mix. Nick DeGroot, Mr. IndyCar amongst the MNR field. And Ed Carpenter, the oval racer for Ed Carpenter Racing, team owner in the NTT IndyCar Series. All kinds of experience in this particular combo. You figure he's going to be shot in the second half of this race, and battles all over the course of the top set. How about that trio at the front, though, Taylor? 3 cars, maybe 5 here if the group can climb up for the race lead.
He is certainly trying to close in that gap, but right now that battle for the race lead between Caruth, Bilicki, and Kyle Busch still nose to tail as they're snaking down the back straightaway. A little bit of lap traffic in front of them, so that could come into play as a factor as they come out of turn number 4. Kyle Busch having a little bit of difficulty, gets a little bit tight as he has the caution out here once again.
And it was trouble for Ed Carpenter, who made contact with Matthew Stalkenek. You'll see it on your screens momentarily, but those two tangled. It looked like, Adam, that Stalkenek may have gotten tight underneath the 31 and just couldn't stay off of the left side of Ed Carpenter's machine as they exited turn 2.
I think that's the reason that we've seen so many cautions tonight, and this is our 6-1, is you get everybody bunched up, and we've said it forever in racing, cautions breed cautions, and you've got these drivers, some with fresh tires, some on older tires, and so the level of aggression varies depending on which driver you're looking at, and it's led to a number of incidents on track, this one happening off of turn 2. I'll say this about Ed Carpenter. He's an Indiana guy, went to Butler University. Their mascot is the Bulldogs. Ed kind of embodies that. He's a Bulldog himself. I say he gets that fast repair. Don't write him off just yet.
Ed Carpenter, a favorite amongst the Indianapolis community in particular, very much the embodiment of one of our own in the NTT IndyCar Series, and I guess a fellow Butler alum to our very own Cisco Scarosa, one of the producers here at Podium eSports and at iRacing as well. So I guess we're all a little bit familiar with the Butler Bulldog war cry and all of the things that go with it. But we'll keep an eye on how Carpenter comes back through the field after we get back to green flag racing. While we're under the yellow flag, though, at this point, good as time as any to take an iRacing midway race break, which is brought to you by iRacing, the world's leading online racing game. iRacing puts you in the virtual driver's seat to experience today's form of competitive motorsport. Virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race from your home in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the world of outlaws, and more. Josh Bilicki, your race leader, with 58 laps complete of 125. Raja Karuth runs second. Third belongs to the number 51 of Kyle Busch. Josh Slate holds the 4th spot at this time. Final man in the top 5 is our defending champion, Nick DeGroot. Matthew Stalkenek runs in the 6th position. 7th belongs to the 77 of Parker Kligerman. The 47 of Connor Daly holds 8th at this time. 9th to the 15 of Kobe Moore. And the last man in the top 10 table verse is the 21 car of Max Kennan.
Holding on to the 11th position is Michael Rossi, followed by Gabriel Wood in 12th position. Drew Welker is sitting in 13th position, followed by Ford Martin in 14th. 15th goes to Stephen Ellis, followed by Preston Pardos in 16th. Ryan Vargas sits in 17th, followed by Joe Adge in 18th. Seth Eggert sits in 19th, and Jesse Vaughn rounds out your top 20, Adam.
Yeah, and when you look on back through the field, there's a number of drivers back there that find themselves a bit behind the 8 ball, but because of what we've seen in regard to attrition tonight, a number of caution flags, still anybody's game, and the door is open for those drivers from 21st on back to still have an opportunity to get back in the game and win tonight at Twin Ring Motegi.
It's Noah Lewis that holds that 21st position at the moment. 22nd is the 2000 NASCAR Xfinity Series champion, Jeff Green. Ron Capps, we've talked about him. He's 23rd. 24th belongs to Kyle McFadden. Big Green Eggs, Rod D'Amico runs in 25th. 26th to Brendan Madonia in the 49. Steve Affont holds 27th. 28th to Garrett Miller. Jason Keffer and Michael Massey complete the top 30, Taylor.
As we look through the rest of the field right now, in 31st is Greg Stump, followed by Gary Sexton in 32nd. DJ Cummings sits 33rd, followed by Mark Rebeles in 34th. Chris Rice sits 35th, followed by Anthony Alfredo. He is currently off the track right now in 36th. Brett Baldeck sits 37th. Dylan Welch sits 38th, followed by Will Rogers 39th. Paul Sutton rounds out your top 40 with Ed Carpenter and Chris Wilner rounding out your 42-car field.
And that concludes our iRacing Midway Race Break for this Carlyle Tools by Napa 125. With over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. You can get on track today to join all the action at iRacing.com. Looks like the field coming through the multiple lucky dog process. Easier to get your laps back here in Monday Night Racing than it would be in real life. A little bit more generous race control. But we talk about the ever-changing and ever-growing list of tracks to come into iRacing. We've seen a few jump out in recent videos over the last few weeks, and one particular tweet by iRacing's own Steve Myers of one of those road signs on the streets of Long Beach, which was announced earlier this year as one of the newest tracks to come to iRacing. And that track has an interesting history. The scan for Long Beach was captured some 6 or 7 years ago, a little bit more time than usual than would be between a typical scan and a release of a track. Usually the turnaround time somewhere in the ballpark of a year. But the trick with the scan of Long Beach way back when was that they just couldn't quite figure out how to make the track work without burning through a lot of computing power for the time. And even though the pandemic has changed lots of ways that we do things, it offered an opportunity for iRacing to go back and revisit that scan of Long Beach to figure out how to make the track work in the sim to where it wouldn't be a drain on computers in 2020. And the end result in the near future will be the release of the streets of Long Beach, which is going to be a very fun track, I think, to drive in iRacing as you go back under the green flag, and they're already back to it. 3 wide, 4 wide, 5 wide. Nick DeGroot already on the gas, already to the inside with Star connecting Klingerman in tow to get to third, Adam.
Great racing.
Trouble
here
in turn 2.
restart.
We have Kyle Busch as well as several other cars turned around right there. That's going to cause a caution here about that. And multiple cars are involved in that incident. But unfortunately for Kyle Busch, he did cause that incident as they entered turn number 2. Just got below that white line and spun that car around, unfortunately. So trouble for the 51 along with several other cars here tonight.
Have not seen too many drivers fall victim to the apron at this stage in the race, but you're right, Taylor. Kyle Busch is the first major case of someone clipping the apron and getting loose and then losing the rear end of their car and spinning up into the field. There was nothing poor Covey Moore could have done. He just drove straight into the 51 machine, and then as the 51 bounced across the racetrack, looks like we actually didn't have too many other drivers get swept up in that incident. Thankfully, a few that got clipped. Gary Sexton in trouble, looks like. Jason Keffer was involved as well, but for the most part, maybe Chuck Martin-Rebillis in there too, but not too many cars with damage, not too many cars that are going to need to use a faster pair, Adam, and what was a very wild record, a dangerous one, especially given how close it came to the restart.
And to be honest with you, James, I'm surprised we haven't seen more of this tonight. You bunch all these guys up on a restart. To me, these things kind of breed this opportunity, and we really haven't had that. This is the first time on a restart, right after we got the green flag, that we've had a problem. I consider us lucky in that regard, and now we will see if we can get another one of those long green flag runs, because we had one somewhere around lap 25 to lap 45, somewhere in that neighborhood. Since that time, a rash of cautions. This is our 7th of the night. Maybe things will settle down. And you know who likes this? A couple of guys that feel good about themselves right now, Josh Bilicki and DeGroot. Because number one, Kyle Busch is way farther behind them than he's been all night long. They feel like they can control this thing a little bit. And the more laps we run under caution, the less time they've got to manage the field. Still a long way to go with more than 60 remaining. But I think these are the two drivers right now that you have to focus on, Nick DeGroot and Josh Bilicki. Both have led laps. They've been there all night long, and they find themselves out front with 62 remaining.
And the only major difference between those two cars at this point, difference in tire wear. Bilicki came in 27 laps ago. DeGroot came in 12 laps ago with just about the rest of the field when they made that pit stop around lap 50 or so. So Bilicki with maybe a little bit more traditional strategy here. You figure, Taylor, that if he's going to ascribe to the two-stop strategy, that we'll see him in pit road in about maybe 20 laps or so, somewhere in that ballpark, whereas DeGroot may try and stretch it, wait for that yellow flag late, and then maybe come in with about 10 to go and get the tires and see if he's got enough time to get back to the front.
That's going to be a great strategy call for both Bilicki and DeGroot. But like we brought out earlier, we got to have that long green flag run for those two strategies to come into play. Now, we've had a one green flag run that happened earlier on. Now we got to see if we can get that second run here later on. See if these drivers can be able to work together, try to see if they can pull away. Like we saw earlier, we saw a big lead from several drivers early on that pulled away, such as Matt Stallconnect, who had it over a second at one point just by pulling away from the main group of cars. Can we see somebody like Bilicki or DeGroot pull off that same strategy and snaking down the straightaways in order to prevent any passing going on for him and try to see if they can control the race lead as well as the pace of tonight's race as we get further down into the end of the race?
We'll keep our eyes peeled on Bilicki and DeGroot in particular, but I do think it is somewhat telling that you look at top 6, 7, 8 at Bilicki, DeGroot, Stalkin, at Kligerman, Daly. Those names we've seen circulate near or in the race lead just about all night long. So the question then, I think, is who is popping around in the back and who is riding around and just waiting? And I wonder, maybe, just maybe, if Seth Eckert might be a candidate for that, because Seth comes into this as an IndyCar dedicated driver too. He's got most of his experience in iRacing in the IndyCar. Of course, the writer for Jerry Jordan's Kickin the Tires. You've probably seen him at a racetrack or two, but Seth can trace his roots back. IndyCar racing and iRacing, has over 10 starts in iRacing's Indianapolis 500, the biggest special events that iRacing runs for these IndyCars each year, and has a deep dedicated love for open wheel racing in iRacing. He's seen enough IndyCar racing in the sim, I think, to know when to go and when to wait. And Taylor, my hunch is that Seth may just be waiting, given what's happened to him in Indy 500s and other IndyCar racing events in the past.
Sometimes the best strategy is to be patient, let the race come to you, and work your way through the field when the time is right. We've seen that happen at super speed races. We've seen that happen in even IndyCar races, especially when it comes to the Indy 500. Who could forget several events where it comes to those final few laps where somebody towards the back half of the field is able to pull off a number of passes to get to the front and take the lead and eventually win that race. We've seen it time and time again. Most likely for Seth, that is what he is planning on trying to do to take home the checkered flag here tonight at Twin Ring Motegi.
Should be a lot of fun, I think, as we'll get set for the restart, which will come on lap 67 of 125, just past halfway in tonight's Carlyle Tools by Napa 125 for Monday Night Racing, presented by Tufco Flooring. It's Bilicki, DeGroot, Stahl, Connect, Kligerman, and Josh Slate, your leaders, as we go back to green flag racing. And already a stack up there in the middle. And look at the big moves down to the inside. It's Michael Rossi making his appearance at the top 5 for the first time. He got a great restart, but I think he might have gone a little bit too early, Adam, because it looks like he just gave all those spots back to avoid the penalty.
Yeah, that's a good move. The last thing you want to do is get penalized. You give those spots back. But Michael Rossi is someone to watch. In a practice event earlier this week, he looked really good at Twin Ring. He's someone that I'm really not surprised that we see up there currently 6th. And here comes DeGroot. Taylor talked about the difference in strategy, the fresher tires, and he is all over Bilicki as we get our 8th caution of the night. It's an incident headed toward turn 3. It looks like Ryan Vargas involved.
Vargas, I saw Dylan Welch was over on his roof too. A few other drivers in trouble towards the back of the field as we go back under the yellow flag. You'll see the replay here and see exactly what happened to down. Vargas down on that inside wall. You'll see the 14 of Welch on the outside wall, but everybody spinning and flipping and bouncing all over the place in the back straightaway here, Taylor.
Certainly is. We see that. In fact, Will Rogers has some severe contact once again. I feel bad for Will Rogers. He's had a tough night since the drop the green flag, has been in mostly of a wide variety of accidents here tonight. And I think it's safe to say that Dallara has seen better days, and probably that's going to be an end of the night for him, because I'm pretty sure he's used all his fast repairs, as we also see the replay of Ryan Vargas going end over end, landing on his roof. Thankfully for that, halo protects the driver, of course. Of course, he's in sim, but if he had a motion rig, I'm pretty sure he's going to be feeling every bump and move of that.
The Aero Screen here with IndyCar, developed by Red Bull Technologies, same group that helps to make Red Bull Racing's Formula One program go well. And we want to talk about the halo, and I think we'd be remiss not to talk about how crucial that was in outright saving Romain Grosjean's life yesterday in the Bahrain Grand Prix. Adam, that was, I think, a wreck that was, as scary as it was to watch, an incredible testament to all the safety advancements that have been made on the open wheel side of racing, especially in the past 10 years.
I think everyone in the motorsports community breathing an enormous sigh of relief, because, while there are various levels of motorsports, we compete all around the world, and there are some internal rivalries between the various types of racing. The one common thread between anyone who follows racing of any kind keep the drivers safe. And when you see something happen like what we saw yesterday, you take a deep breath and you think about how far we have come, because safety has become such a huge initiative in all forms of motorsports, from the local Saturday night short track all the way to NASCAR, F1, and certainly IndyCar. And I love the advancements that have been made. You talked about some of the changes that have been made to these Indy cars in 2020. You can never be safe enough. And I think we learned yesterday with that crash and what ultimately was the end result, that we're very fortunate to have, a driver walk away from something that seemed so scary and could have been so much worse.
Could have been, thankfully wasn't, and probably not a bad thing that IndyCar's aero screen functions very similarly. The structure is pretty similar too. But on a lighter note, we mentioned the photo that was tweeted out by Steve Myers I think only a week ago, of an in-sim shot of what you will see when you get to Long Beach in the near future. Stay tuned, because there's a lot to unpack in that photo, and we'll let you all at home figure out all the pieces of that. But Shoreline Village Drive, of course, one of the iconic pieces of the streets of Long Beach. And Taylor, especially you as a sports car person in addition to an open wheel person, and that's a track that consistently hosts the IndyCar Series and the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. They usually run back-to-back in the same weekend, and I think it's going to be a tremendous addition to the sim when it does finally arrive in the near future.
I mean, you're talking about the biggest road course, street course that is in the United States. I mean, it used to hold Formula One events. That's how popular it was, and still popular today. Of course, with COVID, we couldn't get to run it this year, but I know for a fact in 2021, if COVID allows us to go out there and run the Long Beach Grand Prix for both IndyCar and for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series, it is going to be a show of excitement, and everyone's going to be out there putting on a great show.
I think when I think about Long Beach in particular and what it may be able to bring to the sim, and I don't know if you've had the chance to get too involved with it, but you think of the obvious comparison that will be drawn to the other street course from the United States that's already in the sim, the streets of Belle Isle and Detroit, and just how bumpy that track is. iRacing scans all of the circuits down to the millimeter so that every bump, every crack, every crevice in the racing surface is recreated. You get to Detroit, you can feel every single bump and nook and cranny. It feels like you are driving on a gravel road at 150 plus miles an hour when you come through that opening S section to get down into turn one. I imagine Long Beach, given that it's public roads just like Belle Isle is going to race very similarly and will be a handful, but will also be one of those beautifully difficult challenges where you are probably going to get turned around some way when you race that track, but you're also going to have a really good time tackling one of the best tracks in the country too.
Well, the two of you have a far greater appreciation because of your connection to esports and iRacing, to the job that Steve Myers has been able to do in developing these new tracks and putting them on the circuit. I can't fully appreciate it like you guys can because you're so entrenched in this form of motorsports. But Steve and his group have done an unbelievable job, and Long Beach is going to be a great feather in their cap. And I've got to believe it will be like all the other venues they have added. It will be as real as possible, opening the door for the fans to enjoy it and the drivers as they go through their preparation process.
Racing democratized may as well be the iRacing subtitle as Bilicki leads us back to green on 71, and Stalkenet got a great restart to the inside of Nick DeGroot. He goes, and Kligerman following suit, trying to figure out whether or not he wants to go behind the 89 or the 41, Taylor.
He's having a tough time as he's now ducked to the inside of Nick DeGroot down the back straightaway as we have that battle for the race lead between Stalkenet and Bilicki, as Stalkenet will take over the race lead as they come through turns 3 and 4. Kligerman trying to fight off Nick DeGroot for third, but as they come down the front straightaway, DeGroot will maintain the position for third.
That is wheel-to-wheel carbon fiber tray to carbon fiber tray just about for the race lead. But Nick DeGroot already to the inside, Adam, and I don't even think it's a question of whether or not we get to sleep on him at this point. It's a matter of when he'll be in the lead.
I thought going into one, DeGroot was actually going to push Bilicki by Stalkenet, but that's not the case. He used a little draft, cut to the inside. Now DeGroot in behind Stalkenet for the race lead. Could we be 3 wide into turn 1? Here we go.
maybe. I have a feeling they're going to file that away for later. They're going to go against it for now. Instead, DeGroot jumps to the inside to try and get around Balicki as Josh Slayton, the 48, begins to charge back through the field. He got around Kligerman just a moment ago, Taylor.
He certainly did now and sets his sight right now on the top three, who's just in front of them, getting ready to approach a lap car as they go down the front straightaway. This has been interesting. The past few laps, they've had to work their way around lap traffic, which affects the aerodynamics of the leaders right now, but also where to place their cars as they enter into the corners. And as we see that right now, they were able to get by the lap car and now work their way down the back straightaway. Stall Connect still trying to snake his way to get away from DeGroot and Balicki as they work through turns 3 and 4. But DeGroot, with a great run off turn 4, tries to see if he can pull the lead around from Stall Connect, but Stall Connect will be able to hold on as they go down into turn 1.
Big incident, though, for Noah Lewis. That's where the yellow comes out. You'll see the replay on your screens as he worked his way through 3 and 4. The incident happened over in 1 and 2, and I think he may have gotten some help from the 51 of Kyle Busch entering the corner. You'll see Busch duck down to the inside, and then just the slightest of contact there as Lewis was trying to check out to make the corner. He caught the apron and a little bit of contact further back that sent Lewis up into the air as he came back into the racing line. Just got pile driven in the middle of 1 and 2, and up and over goes the 98 machine now.
That's the ninth caution of the night, and I believe it's the second time we've seen Noah Lewis go up and over, and it's hard to miss him in that bright green car. And, I wonder, did Kyle Busch get any damage to the nose? Because if you remember, he was involved in that accident on the restart about 20 laps ago, had to use a fast repair, and I was curious to see how he would make his way through the field. Obviously felt like with 50 to go, he needed to start getting a little more aggressive. Did he get any damage on the front end? We'll have to wait and see if that could have a negative impact later in the race on Kyle Busch, because early on, and you look at it there, it doesn't look like it to me. You guys have a better feel, but I can't tell if that wing's been a little bit or not. But if his car's okay, doesn't have to use a fast repair here, maybe he can save a little track position, save a fast repair, and stay in the game.
The way the fast repair works with these Indy cars is very similar, especially in Kyle Busch's case, where he has wing damage, to the way it works in real life with the way front and rear wings can be changed out, and front wings in particular, very quickly. If there's no suspension damage to Kyle Busch's car, then he'll be able to come down pit road, get the front wing swapped out just like they would in real life. It might be maybe a 10-second pit stop instead of the traditional 6 or 7-second pit stop that we see with the Indy cars in iRacing, but he won't have to use a fast repair. And that, Taylor, is the biggest key of all in all of this.
It is certainly, and that's we just saw as he comes off of pit road. We just saw them replace the nose as well as a little bit of damage towards the back half of that Dallara. So he is now has a full fresh car with some after a little bit, but I do not know if he did use that fast repair. That is going to be the question to see. We'll have to find out later on if he is involved in another incident. Will he have used up his fast repair, or did he take the time to take a few more seconds? As we look at actually his pit road time, on pit road, it was about an 8.4 second stop. So he probably did not use that fast repair just right away. He was just shy of it. So they probably did a little bit of work on it just to save a little time. But it's going to be a tough call to see if he did use the fast repair.
I think Kyle Busch gets a lucky break there, doesn't have to use the fast repair. And as he comes back out on the racetrack, we'll take another break, but be back in just a few moments with more coverage of Monday Night Racing's Carlyle Tools by Napa 125 from iRacing's virtual twin ring Motegi.
We are an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. We don't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach to flooring, and neither should you. When you choose Tufco, we consult with you about your needs, industry requirements, and factor in numerous variables. After assessing your facility, we engineer your floor and drains, then install everything ourselves. That's the Tufco way.
Visit our website at tufcoflooring.com.
Back with coverage of the Carlyle Tools by Napa 125, third race of the season for Monday Night Racing, presented by Tufco Flooring here on Podium eSports. James Pike, Taylor Burris, and the voice of the NASCAR Xfinity Series on Fox, Adam Alexander, in the booth to bring you the final, call it 45 and change laps or so in tonight's race, where Nick DeGroot is your leader, and we've seen a similar cast of characters at the front of the field for the majority of this race, but we also do have 37 cars still on the lead lap, Taylor, so you could run through just about anybody in this field, including Kyle Busch, who just got caught up in an incident and had to come down pit road to change his front wing, and say that they are genuinely still in the hunt for the race win.
That's one of the great things about Monday Night Racing, that is that the Ford Martin and his team came up with a way to still provide great racing action, but of course where these drivers, if they do get caught up in an incident, they can still have a chance to win tonight's race. And Kyle Busch, even though that he was involved in an incident, came down pit road, got a fast repair or that damage fixed, he got back on the lead lap, and he is still within contention to win tonight's race, to get win number 2 for him this season, and in full act improve his position in the points championship later on this season when we go playoff racing next year. But for the rest of the field, everyone is still out there with a shot of it. Now, if they've used their fast repairs already, then it's probably safe to say that their night is over with. But if some of them have tabled away that fast repair and try to save as much of that damage on pit road, they may still have a shot to win. And also, in case they get caught up in something later, they will have that fast repair to come down pit road, get fixed, and still have a contention to win tonight's race.
We'll get the restart here in about half a lap, but it does bring in the age-old strategy question. Although it's harder, I think, to get away with it in an Indy car than it is in maybe a regular stunt car or a truck. Can you save a fast repair if your damage isn't necessarily all that bad and keep it in your back pocket in the event we get a rash of yellow flags in the final 10 to 15 laps of the race? That's something we'll have to keep track of as we go back green flag racing again. DeGroot got a good restart away from Slade, Kligerman, and Ford Martin up to 4th. Highest he's been all night. The owner, the founder of Monday Night Racing, one of the Jack Daniels paint scheme, and running well. But the battle is a little bit further back, and the yellow may be a little bit further back too. One car went sideways spinning. Couldn't tell who it was. I think Brendan Beaudoin. There was an incident there about 7th or 8th that really split the field up, Adam.
Yeah, we stay green for now. That's the good news. And you mentioned Ford Martin. I mean, what a great night for him. He's had a couple of issues throughout this race, had to use a fast repair, but now finds himself inside the top 5. And there's one off the pace. Yeah, let's go on board with Ford Martin doing some positive things as he comes off the corner and races down the straightaway. Ford's such a positive, optimistic guy. I love what he's done with Monday Night Racing. And there's been a lot of hard work go into this, and Ford's the guy that deserves all the credit. I shouldn't say all, but a good portion of the credit. So many good people making this happen. It's nice to see Ford having a good run inside the top 5.
Ford's brainchild, using the power of the connections he's built over his lifetime. Of course, the son of NASCAR crew chief Joe Martin. But being around the garage, he knows a few people. So when you're Ford, you get the chance to text a few folks, and you can bring in a Kyle Busch or a Parker Kligerman or an Adam Alexander in the booth every once in a while. And it's the names and the staying power of the people involved in this league that make it special amongst all the leagues in Iris and Taylor, as is the combination of cars and trucks that we see change every single week. It's a true test of how good you are as a driver across the board.
It certainly is, and as we see right now, that battle for Nick DeGroot, who shows that he has what it takes to take on the high speeds of IndyCar racing at Twin Ring Motegi. He's racked up a couple of IndyCar wins last season, and he is definitely showing that he's going to continue that streak here tonight, as he has just taken the race lead away from Joshua Slate as they come off of turn number 2. But that's what's so amazing about this series. It's a wide variety of different cars and track combinations to test the might and limit of all these drivers here tonight. As we see, as Josh Slade is having some trouble, he's actually going to get a little loose, goes down pit road as he is coming down. Don't know why, but he's coming down pit road to get some service required or serve a penalty.
Slate caught the apron, and I think he may have just called an audible there, Adam, and said, look, if I'm already loose and I'm already going to lose the time, let me come down pit road, make my final stop now, hope this goes green the rest of the way, and maybe it plays back into his favor. But I think if that is the audible, he just played a really great call on the fly to save his chances at a potential win.
Good to save the race car. I would say, though, when you look at the trends of this race, hard to imagine that this thing runs out green, which would certainly favor DeGroot at this point when you look at the advantage he has. And I'm surprised, even when DeGroot and Slate were racing tight for the top spot, Kligerman was really not able to gain any ground. Right now, he's just about 0.8 of a second behind as we go on board here We'll see if Kligerman can get back up there. Someone else to keep an eye on, that 33, Anthony Alfredo. I mean, one of the many drivers who's dealt with some form of adversity in tonight's race, but the driver that was so successful in his rookie campaign of the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2020, driving for Richard Childress, finds himself inside the top 5 battling for position here.
How about that move to the outside of Joe Agee, who's no sleeper either? Agee won the season finale, the Tufco Flooring 125, that used these Indy cars at Indianapolis back in September. So he has experience of the positive kind in Monday Night Racing's IndyCar competition. And Alfredo just waltzed around him on the outside with a great run on a turn 2 that last time by Taylor. It almost looked like Agee was just parked.
It certainly did. I mean, that car was looking at a complete standstill compared to Anthony Alfredo, who has now moved into top 5. Preston Pardis as well, having a great run, currently sits in that 6th position, trying to run down Alfredo as they keep away from Joe, as well as DJ Cummings, who's starting to creep his way back up. Remember, DJ ran into some trouble in the middle of this race and has now worked his way back up to a top 10 run currently. Another driver to keep an eye on as well, who's been having trouble late in the going, Kyle Busch. He's now back inside the top 20, running in 19th.
I love the contrast of the way Nick DeGroot has run this race, which has basically been control everything at the front, to the races that we've seen from Kyle Busch, from DJ Cummings, from a few of the other folks in the top 10, Ford Martin a little bit, Anthony Alfredo too, where they've had to work their way back from the back after being involved in incidents. I feel like it speaks to their ability as drivers out, but also to the flexibility and the great racing that this particular IndyCar chassis creates.
I think the one question you always have to ask going into any race is what is the balance of patience and aggression? And I think it certainly applies to a place like Twin Ring because of the speeds you produce, the tight quarter racing, but then you throw in the number of cautions we've had in this race tonight and the various strategies that the race has produced. There are times when you got to be on go. Other times you got to play the patience game. And I think when you look at Nick DeGroot and the various positions he's been in this race tonight and how he's been able to manage that, it makes him the favorite to win it. Now, easy to say that, 34 laps to go, and he's got a comfortable lead, in fact, pulling away from Parker Kligerman. But I think just across the board, when you consider the way they played the strategy, and regardless if he's been in traffic or he's been out front, the way that car has handled and maneuvered through the field, I think he's the guy right now. And if they lose this race, it could very well be because they beat themselves, because there's no other threat being applied unless we get a caution. And here's Garrett Miller with a spin. As of now, we stay green.
Miller able to stay out of the racing line, which usually tends to be the thing that will trigger a caution, whether or not it's automated by iRacing or set by the manual race control that we have tonight. Josh Mendoza up in the tower, but we do get a proper yellow. Looks like Joe Agee in trouble over in turn 2, and I think Drew Welker also involved with him. We're back under the yellow flag once again. Taylor, incident over in turn 2 this time.
Yes, it was. It was between actually both DJ Cummings as well as Joe Agee. As Joe actually came down a little bit on DJ Cummings, causing Joe to lose control of his race car as they then made the contact with Drew Welker. And those two cars went up to the top of the racetrack, and unfortunately their cars are severely damaged. Don't know if they have a fast repair still on hand, but their nights are done so far.
It feels like a classic case of crossing apexes in this particular incident. And this track, and especially 1 and 2, are wide enough to where you may have someone that rides the bottom. You may have somebody try and maybe enter high to come out of the corner low, like it looked like Agee was trying to do. It looked like he thought he was going to be clear of Cummings by the time he got to the center of the corner, but just didn't quite have the run he needed to be clear with the 10 machine added. And that's when all the madness started up on the outside wall.
And now I think the question becomes, what do you do from here? And we've talked various times throughout the night about how strategy could play a role in the outcome. And I was just discussing the advantage that DeGroot had. Now the pressure is on he in the decision-making that comes with what could be the final pit stop. And the questions are answered. Here are many of the front runners coming down the pit lane.
Many of them, and guess who stayed out once again? No surprise, maybe, that the 51 of Kyle Busch wants their track position as DeGroot and company come back down pit road, Taylor.
Kyle Busch, I'm sure, has pretty much every time the rest of the field has come down, he has decided to stay out when he has no damage to his race car, of course. So we're going to see how well that 51 Rowdy energy drink Dallara will be able to maintain up at the front of the field right now. Currently looking at his pit strategy, he has about 18 laps on his tires right now, so he's got a couple of cars staying out on the track with him. Drivers such as Kobe Moore, Max Kennan are the other two drivers who decided to stay out on the racetrack. Also, I believe Rajah Caruth and Ed Carpenter also have yet to pit as well. So keep an eye and see what they can pull off here tonight if they're able to maintain their position. Of course, Nick DeGroot back on the racetrack with the freshest tires, currently sitting in 4th position.
Beginning to see who's going to try and win on fresh tires and who's going to try and use track position to maybe steal away the Carlyle Tools by Napa 125. One more break we'll get in before we bring you non-stop coverage to the finish of tonight's race, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back as Podium Esports brings you more coverage on Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring from iRacing's virtual Twin Ring Motegi. Back with the closing stages of the Carlyle Tools by Napa 125 for Monday Night Racing at the virtual Twin Ring Motegi here on Podium Esports. Is James Pike, Taylor Burris, and NASCAR on Fox's Adam Alexander bringing you all the action with the Indy cars. First time we've gone IndyCar racing in Season 2 of Monday Night Racing. And Kyle Busch has just regained the lead. We're under the yellow flag. Busch stayed out while everybody else came in. So it's Busch with the track position versus Nick DeGroot with the fresh tires. Adam Alexander, do you have a favorite in that case? Do you like the track position? Do you like the tires? What's your pick there if you're in the driver's seat?
Here's what I like. Kyle Busch was running 17th. He said, I'm running out of time. I got to find a way to the front. And if I can't drive there, this is my opportunity. Takes a bet on himself, right? He puts himself in the best position possible out front. And he's got great confidence in his ability behind the wheel. The other part of this, Max Kennan's going to restart second. We haven't said his name a lot tonight. 21 car has been strong. Anxious to see what this young mechanic in the Truck and Xfinity Series can do, driving on the iRacing side of things. And DeGroot in third on fresh tires. Hard to imagine with the kind of car he's had tonight, he will not find his way by Kyle Busch. It's a great rivalry. They were 1-2 at Talladega. It's going to be a very interesting finish as we go under 30 laps to go.
DeGroot may have the fresh tires and maybe the fastest car in the field. The problem for the 89 is that it is Kyle Busch in front, and we saw what he did when he bent on himself at Talladega, drove through the middle almost identically to the way that Dale Earnhardt did it in 2000 in his final victory to get the victory there. And then Max Kennan, that mechanic that Adam just mentioned, Taylor, he's mechanic for Kyle Busch Motorsports. And you would think that the 21 probably would be inclined to help Boss Man keep the 89 at bay a little bit, no?
Might be a little bit of team orders here happening here on the closing laps tonight at Twin Ring Motegi. Of course, that we said, that race at Talladega with Kyle Busch, probably one of the most phenomenal sim racing events that we saw any driver pull off. I mean, starting outside the top 20 and in 2 laps went from the top 20 to first. I mean, that's just amazing. Of course, that's Talladega racing. Of course, here what we're doing at Twin Ring Motegi, someone could
big wreck on the restart, though. Big wreck on the restart. About 5 or 6 cars stacked up before we got going. I see Rajah Caruth stopped over there. We'll see if we get another yellow flag now. It comes out, but it almost looked like someone might have missed a shift on the exit of turn 4 because maybe 10 cars or so got stacked up behind second and third place. We'll go back and take a look at the replay to see what exactly happened, but one of the biggest incidents we've had all night, if not the biggest, and it looks like that it may have started with Parker Kligerman in the 77.
looking at the replay right now, he missed a shift coming to the green, and then of course Rajah Caruth made that contact to the back bumper of Kligerman since Kligerman couldn't go at all. And then of course caused a big stack up where several cars go underneath Rajah Caruth and that 99 Dallara as the rest of the field continues to pile in. A couple of cars actually going over Caruth as a ramp almost in a sense for these drivers, and I think Nick DeGroot might have almost got away with that unscathed.
Actually, and I would think the chat probably confirms this, Raja just came on the in-sim chat and apologized to everybody. So looks like Raja tried to jump the restart, went too early, and got into the back of Kligerman. That's what turned Parker around. Raja then turned around after bouncing off the rear end of the 77, and there was nowhere that Ed Carpenter could have gone, nowhere Stephen Ellis could have gone in the 46 machine. Reporter for the Hockey News, Ford Martin somehow just got on the brakes in time to make sure that he didn't end up in trouble. But looks like Kyle McFadden wasn't as lucky. Looks like Gabe Wood wasn't as lucky. He launched off the front end of Raj's car. I didn't necessarily think we'd see some motorcycle impressions all around Shahid, Adam, but it looks like the one car almost just went off a mogul ramp there for a moment.
Well, and I'm anxious to see where everything resets, but my timing and scoring right now says Parker Kligerman in 8th, and I thought he did a miraculous job of keeping that car off of the inside wall, because you think about this. You're ready for what could be the final restart, and your opportunity to get after it, gain the track position, perhaps go up another top 5, maybe back-to-back wins for Kligerman. You get punted from behind, and to keep it off that inside wall was very, very impressive for Parker, because if he wrecks there, probably going to be difficult to win this race. But by staying up there in the top 10, still got a chance, and that was a nice bit of driving on his part. And think about it from the perspective of Kyle Busch and Max Kinnon. They stayed out under our last caution. If they had not, they could very well have been right in the middle of that mess on the restart. So the fact that they stayed out, they're running 1-2, they're able to avoid incident here, and they'll be the top 2 cars again when we get the restart now inside of 25 laps remaining.
If you ever want a textbook example of the importance of track position, I think Kyle Busch and Max Kinnon in that case could go right into the dictionary perfectly there, because they most definitely kept themselves out of trouble, as you said. Now, so far as Kligerman is concerned, he's down pit road now. The questions we'll have, if he's used up all his fast repairs, which I'm not sure he has or haven't. We'll see momentarily. But looks like, yeah, I think he may well get that rear wing changed. And then the question becomes whether or not there's any damage to the diffuser on the back end of that car. And I think if we take a peek, we'll see whether or not Kligerman had much to change. But no, I think amazingly enough, he only had damage to the rear wing on the 77 machine. Looks like that car was fine otherwise. And much like Kyle Busch earlier, who had that front wing damage and the yellow flag some 20 laps to go, Kligerman gets lucky. And I think he escapes this incident without having to use a fast repair, which, Taylor, may be even more miraculous than the situation Kyle Busch found himself in a little bit ago, given how this incident played out.
It certainly is a big sigh of relief for Parker Kligerman and then number 77, Valvoline Dallara. I mean, close call indeed for him. I mean, any more contact to that outside wall would have probably caused him to have to take a fast repair here tonight. But thankfully, looks like a little bit of damage to the rear wing and then just back out onto the track to continue on racing here with 25 laps to go. He could possibly put in a good run here towards the end and have something for Kyle Busch or Kennan or even Nick DeGroot, because he will have the freshest tires.
DeGroot with the freshest tires, but everybody behind him with the fresh tires too. I think that's another thing we need to keep track of. And Stephen Ellis will be an interesting case if he decides not to come down pit road just because of the damage to the right side of his wing. However, we saw something similar happened to Will Power in the iRacing IndyCar Challenge back in April. Power got caught up in the incident between Oliver Askew and Scott McLaughlin, which sent McLaughlin into the fence and ended his chance to win. And Power lost the right side of his front wing, but didn't lose all that much pace just because you do turn left here more than you do right. So it didn't affect his car that much. He was able to come away with the top 5 finish. So Ellis, even though he has a significant amount of damage to the right side of that front wing, if you're picking a place to have damage on the front wing, much better the right side than the left side here at Twin Ring Motegi.
I'll say this, James. I'm going to go a couple of spots behind Ellis to DJ Cummings. If you go back to the early part of this race, had a great qualifying run. He was right in the mix, had some opportunities to take the race lead before being involved in an incident. They had managed their night quite nicely. Here he is in 7th. Will Rogers, I mean, Taylor said it on multiple times tonight, how they've had so many things to overcome. Rogers has done that. He's in the top 10 in that 65. And here's Anthony Alfredo. I mean, I felt like it was 15 minutes ago on the time of day clock that he was upside down and spinning. And now he's in the 9th position. So there's a nice collection of drivers there to keep an eye on as we return to the green flag.
On lap 102 of 125, and Cummings was right in the thick of it at the end of the season finale with the Indy cars at Indianapolis. So Adam, I think, absolutely is on to something. Watch out for the 10 machine, who's right in the heart of the battle, right behind Stephen Ellis, as Kyle Busch will go to the lead and immediately drop to the apron to fight his old nemesis. Maybe not a huge surprise. We're in Indy cars and iRacing, and they nearly make contact, but as we get towards the end of the race, Taylor, look who's out front, the 51 and the 89, just as it was so many times last season.
And still, so many times we've seen already this season between the two drivers as they go side by side through the middle of turns 1 and 2. Nick DeGroot, though, with the fresh tires, will easily get by Kyle Busch to the inside, down the back straightaway. But here comes the slipstream and the draft from several of the drivers. Ford and Martin with a head of steam as they dive it into turns 3 and 4. Now McKinnon makes contact with his boss, Kyle Busch. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be an interesting conversation as they continue on their way, though. Kyle Busch losing a lot of momentum and getting passed by Preston Pardus and Anthony Alfredo as they dive into turn 1.
So the mechanic punts the boss man and sends him back to 6th after he had been running 2nd. Meanwhile, Ford Martin to his inside put the yellow flag out again. And I think Jeff Green might be the culprit this time around. His car upside down over behind turn 2. And another pretty big barrel roll over in 2, Adam. We've seen that a lot, especially with cars that come off the apron like it looks like Green just did.
Hate that for Jeff Green. I believe he was top 10 last weekend in a truck at Las Vegas. You guys could correct me on that if I'm wrong, last Monday night. But a driver who's won an Xfinity Series championship in 2000, the pride of Owensboro, Kentucky, that has produced so many great racers, including NASCAR Hall of Famer Darrell Waltrip. And Jeff, of course, raced with his brothers Mark and David. David also won a championship, now a NASCAR official. And the one thing I love about Jeff, not only is he here in iRacing, he still races in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, but when he's not racing, he's helping out Ryan Sieg in that operation. So a really good guy is Jeff Green, been around a long time, and neat to see him a part of this evening's IndyCar event at Twin Ring Motegi.
You get that same sort of spirit from Jeff Green that I think we do from Ron Capps, just in the sense that Jeff has that willingness to run anything and everything that he can get his hands on, even if it might not necessarily be his native wheelhouse. Like these Indy cars aren't really what you see, or what you think about when you think about Jeff Green driving race cars. But yet here he is, still willing to try and go after it, still willing to try and race it, and just have some fun with it, because that ultimately is the point of all of this. If you're not enjoying your time racing and having that feeling, that sensation of being behind an Indy car that is just so darty, so flighty, so brilliantly on the edge, especially on these ovals where you're going in excess of 200 miles an hour on multiple occasions, it just seems like you're missing something, Taylor.
It certainly is. I mean, these cars are so much fun to drive. I mean, here at Twin Ring Motegi and any IndyCar circuit you take these cars out on, it's just the variety of speed and also just the difference and of capabilities that you can utilize here, especially when it comes to the aerodynamics. I mean, you can try to go, unlike with the Cup cars where you can try to go side by side pretty much, these cars you kind of can't do that. And some people are love to see how well they can try to negotiate and navigate through traffic with the aerodynamics of these cars to try to make certain passes work. We've seen that happen a couple times here tonight, and frankly, they put on great passes and completions of that, especially with Nick DeGroot with those fresh tires. He was able to just get by both Kennan and Kyle Busch with ease, of course. And it's great to see such great battles all throughout the race here tonight.
So DeGroot has the fresh tires. Kennan stayed out with Kyle Busch. Ford Martin we've talked about. But a name we have not spoken about, and a driver with experience in various forms of racing, Adam, Preston Pardus in the 90 car, who most recently gained some fame by claiming his second national title at the SCCA runoffs in the Spec Miata category at Road America earlier this year. But P-Money running well here, and I wonder if he, maybe like Alfredo, maybe like Cummings, Will Rogers too, might be in that camp of let me wait until about the last 20 laps or so, and then I'll make my charge when I really need to go. I don't need to worry about racing hard the first 100 laps or so.
And I'm curious the mindset of all these drivers in the top 10 right now, because you've laid out the various circumstances that they all face in regard to tires. The biggest challenge for anybody in the top 10 is dealing with that lead car in Nick DeGroot. And we've documented on multiple times in this race his ability to handle the various circumstances that have been thrown at them, whether it's been the traffic when they made a pit stop and many others stayed out, or holding the drivers off behind him when they had the race lead. I think everything is cycled back through. They had a comfortable advantage. Didn't appear anybody was going to threaten that 89 until we got the caution with 32 laps to go, and that brought pit stops. And we thought maybe that would compromise their circumstance. Now things have sorted out again, and here he is in control. And the question becomes those guys behind him. Do you get aggressive and go after him, or do you just try to race the guys around you? Because I think right now the battle is going to be for second if Nick DeGroot plays his cards right here as we close on 15 laps remaining.
And by extension, Taylor, do you care, can you care, if DeGroot starts getting away while you're racing somebody for third or fourth or fifth? Is it anything you can worry about? Or do you try and maybe work with somebody around you to make sure that DeGroot doesn't leap off the front of this and run away with this? Or is it every spot and every driver for themselves to try and get whatever they can in the top 5? And, maybe if Nick runs away with this, it's okay because you still end up with a good points net. What's your mindset if you're a driver in all this?
Well, if you're a driver, you want to try to get by your competitors as quickly as possible. Of course, right now, it's a time where we're not going to be seeing any more give and take. It is going to be take every spot you can. And, of course, drivers such as Max Kennan and Ford Martin, they don't want to be battling side by side for position. They want to try to get their position as quickly as possible and try and catch up to Nick DeGroot. Of course, it's going to be difficult when drivers start battling side by side. That's going to allow Nick DeGroot to pull away. So these drivers need to try, if they want to go out there and win tonight's race here at Twin Ring Motegi, they are going to have to make the pass as quickly as possible so that way they can focus on their battle for the race win tonight.
Back up on the wall is DeGroot, is Kennan, is Martin, is just about everybody. And the question will be, who tries to jump this restart like Rajah Caruth tried to a few restarts ago? Who gets a good restart, and how far away does Nick DeGroot get from the rest of this field? The answer, I think, is a decent amount. Pretty standard restart for him. The man who got a good restart, though, how about Preston Pardus? How about Anthony Alfredo already all over Ford Martin into one, Adam?
Great battle here for position, and this is what we talked about. Aggressive on the restart. Taylor said it, get as much as you can. Ford Martin under attack big time as we head toward turn 3.
And Preston Pardus making his name known. Kyle Busch trying to follow right behind P-Money's line out of turn number 4. And he will duck to the inside of Ford Martin and maybe make it 3 wide into turn 1.
Kyle Busch going to go 3 wide to the inside around Preston Pardus and Ford Martin as they come off of turn number 2. Now Ford Martin's going to try the crossover. He's going to take it to the bottom of the racetrack down the back straightaway as we keep an eye out for the battle for the race lead between Kennan and Nick DeGroot as we still see Kyle Busch now. He will slot up to 3rd position, catching up now, setting his sights on Kennan and DeGroot as they come across the start-finish line.
I think Ford read that about as beautifully as you could. He got tight in the center of the corner and decided to slow up in the middle to get that good exit down low out of 2 that last time by, but he just didn't have enough momentum. So there goes Kyle Busch up into P3 as Kennan is right there on the right rear wheel of the 89 machine.
You've got to give a ton of credit to both Kennan and Kyle Busch. Remember, they are on older tires. Now maybe DeGroot is saving a little bit here, but I can't imagine that's the case. As we go to 14 laps remaining, DeGroot is out front, but it's the 2 drivers probably you wouldn't have picked based on tire wear to get him. Kyle Busch from 6th to 3rd, and Max Kennan right in DeGroot's hip pocket.
tire wear might be one thing, but the fearlessness, maybe you can train that, but I almost feel like it's going to have to be on hold for a little bit. We get another yellow flag to slow us down. Drew Welker and Steven Ellis are the ones on their roofs over in turn 2 yet again. Taylor, the problem corner all night long, strikes again.
It certainly has. As we get a look at the replay, we will see Ellis and Drew Welker coming together as they go down into turn number 2. You'll see that slight bit of contact right there off the exit of turn 2, both of them getting together and up on their roofs here tonight. So a tough break for Welker, who is having a good run in the middle of this race, running inside the top 10 for a duration, but unfortunately he is currently up on his roof now down on pit road to get that fast repair needed. One thing quickly I want to bring out, though, before that caution came out, do you guys know who the fastest driver was? Just a quick thought.
I'm going to go Kyle Busch.
Yes, Kyle Busch ran a 27.29 just before that caution. So, and the previous lap, a 27.3. So he is definitely the driver out there to watch, and he has some of the oldest tires. Of course, that slipstream helps out big time here at Twin Ring Motegi with these Indy cars.
So is DeGroot saving? Does he have more in that 89? Are there any more cards we haven't seen? You figure Kyle Busch is showing his head, but we'll just have to wait and see when we get back to Green Flag Racing. In the meantime, though, we'll remind you of some of the other events you can see in the world of iRacing coming up over the course of the next week. And it continues tomorrow night as the road to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series for 2021 continues with the third round of 6 in the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series from Richmond Raceway. You'll find that broadcast tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/Podium eSports before we're back at it Monday night with our winter doubleheader between the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge and Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring. The Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge will be at the Charlotte Legends Oval. They'll be next Monday night, December 7th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on the Podium eSports Twitch channel. And then Podium's YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you may be. Come back as we take Monday Night Racing to the Irish Hills of Michigan International Speedway, and we'll run the super late models. And that you can find on your screens, 9 p.m. Eastern, as usual, on Podium eSports. And Adam, we talked about how this race compared to a Wednesday night iRacing event on FS1. The super late models at Michigan was a combo that was actually used in Wednesday night racing on FS1. And I figure you, maybe more so than just about anybody else, could give us a good sense of what we should expect next week and how good that combo can be, given that the super late model is widely regarded as one of the best driving cars in all of iRacing.
Well, and I think there were a lot of people that said super late models at a 2-mile high-speed oval like Michigan, how is this going to work? And the answer is that we knocked it out of the park. It was an incredible finish. It was so fun to watch the racing that particular Wednesday night. It was part one of a doubleheader, and when it wrapped, we were all like, maybe we should just call it good and go home, because there's no way we're going to top what we saw in the opening race of our twin bill. So get ready for next Monday night. The super late models at Michigan will put on a fantastic show, especially when you consider the level of talent and depth of field that we'll put out there with this Monday night crew.
The story of the super late model in iRacing, Taylor, is an interesting one. It was a car that had sort of fallen out of favor in 2017, 2018. It was one of the older cars in the iRacing service at the time, and there were newer cars that people tended to flock to a little bit. We had the Tour Modifieds get an update around then, and those became the sort of home track, short track car of choice. And then they brought in the most successful overdriver in all of iRacing, Ty Majeski, who's had experience in both the NASCAR Gander Outdoors Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. And he came in and helped iRacing completely redo the driving dynamics on the super late model, and in turn turned it into one of the best cars in all of iRacing. That's part of the reason why it ended up on Wednesday night racing on FS1, but also the reason why we've seen the super late models at places where you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be. It's because the car is just that good in the sim.
It certainly is, and it's a fan favorite amongst the entire field, as we brought out. I mean, we still see some of the biggest short track series and short track races brought to you here on the iRacing service thanks to these super late models. And we see that time and time again. Of course, here on Podium, we had the privilege of the Cars Tour with the super late models here. And we know week after week, they put on a great show. And of course, several other great races to come later on this year about with the super late models. I mean, it's a phenomenal car to drive. And of course, no matter what track you go to with it, whether it be the high banks of Michigan's or one of the more famous and newer short tracks that we have here, the Nashville Fairgrounds, it's a great car to drive, period.
Talk about events that will involve the super late model and a Podium broadcast. How about the virtual Snowball Derby? Sunday, December 13th, 1 p.m. Speed 51 and Podium eSports partnering to bring you coverage of one of the biggest virtual short track events in all of iRacing. We know about how big the chase for the Tom Dawson Memorial Trophy is in real life. You'll see that this upcoming weekend, but we'll keep our eyes peeled on the Indy cars for now. We'll get back to super late models later. It's all about Nick DeGroot, who has the lead coming up to 5 laps to go in this Carlyle Tools by Napa 125, and they all tried to game the restart, and I don't know if it cost Max Kennan a lot, but it looks like he's going to lose at least one spot to Preston Bardis. He checked up behind Kyle Busch, who is all over Nick DeGroot for the race lead, Adam.
These guys were 1-2 at Talladega a couple of weeks ago. That night it went to Kyle Busch. DeGroot, though, trying to hang on here and win at Twin Ring Motegi. Kyle Busch on the high side trying to take the lead into turn 3.
We talked to Nick DeGroot a few weeks ago after that Talladega race. He said, Kyle's got 2 wins on me. I only have 1. If there's one driver I want to beat in an Indy car, it is Kyle Busch. This is exactly the scenario that Nick DeGroot was looking for. I have to believe that he's not needed much more motivation to try and hang on to this, but it's not like Kyle Busch is going to let him have it easily, Taylor.
He certainly is not. He is trying to find a way to hold on as Kyle Busch looks to the outside. Meanwhile, the battle for third is 3 wide as they come out of turn number 4 there for that battle for third. Anthony Alfredo, the car who has been able to hold on to that third position as they dive it back into turn 1. Keeping an eye on that race lead. Kyle Busch slots back in behind Nick DeGroot, tries to stay within that slipstream, see if he can find a way and follow him down the back straightaway and take the pass as they'll go side by side as they go into 3.
Snaking turned up to 11, fuel latch turned up all the way to 7, and then some, and everybody trying to get every last bit they can as Anthony Alfredo just about put Max Kennan in the wall, and DeGroot continues to hold that bottom. There is no way he is going to let Kyle Busch get to the inside.
He's doing a great job of managing the traffic, and he looks down to the inside, putting those left side tires toward that white line, then drifting just high enough to keep Kyle Busch at bay in that outside lane. But Kyle with a big run here off of turn 4. Once again, DeGroot slams the door shut.
Oh, trouble for third place, fourth place. I think that's Max Kennan around and over on his roof. And around he goes. The yellow flag comes out as more cars wreck down the front straightaway. But Kennan racing for a spot in the top 5, in trouble on the exit of turn 4. And that will set us up with a very late race restart. We may end up in green-white checker territory. But Max Kennan, again, the turn 4 problem we talked about, especially if you end up in trouble on your own, more often than not, it's because you lose the rear end on corner exit. I think he may have had the air taken off his nose, courtesy of the 33 of Anthony Alfredo. So I'm not sure if it was entirely Kennan's fault, but that general principle, that's exactly what happened to the 21 machine coming out of 4 that side, Taylor.
It certainly is as we go on board with Anthony Alfredo. You'll notice he'll make that big cut right in front of Kennan, and then there goes Kennan around, making hard contact to the outside wall. And then, of course, thankfully, nobody else got collected up in that incident. A couple of cars towards the back caused another incident towards there. But other than that, nobody made hard contact with Max Kennan as the rest of the field continues to pile up after the fact of the incident here, as we are going to be 3 laps to go. Of course, we're going to have possibly a green-white checkered attempt here before we end tonight's race.
A tough breaks for Max Kennan, who I think would be remiss not to mention his paint scheme, very particularly navy blue and white color machine, honoring Al Unser Jr.'s championship car for the 1992 Indianapolis 500. That classic finish where he just beat out Scott Goodyear at the line and didn't quite have the same luck tonight, but a really strong performance for Max Kennan. If nothing else, even if he doesn't get the finish he wanted tonight, Adam, that's momentum that he can carry into the super late models at Michigan next week.
But boy, the last few laps of this race are something that Max will replay over and over, because every time I looked up tonight at timing and scoring, he was inside the top 10 and was making a play for the top 5. Then he gets in the top 5, and we felt like he had a real opportunity to win this race. So to have his night come to a close the way it did, I think is going to be a cause for many sleepless nights ahead as he recounts what he could have done differently, trying to garner a top 5, maybe even a win tonight at Twin Ring Motegi.
The good news for Max and for everybody else who likes to see the Indy cars in Monday Night Racing is that this is not the only race that will use these Indy cars over the course of Season 2. Next time we'll be back in the Indy cars. You'll have to wait until the new year, but January 11th, we head to Pocono Raceway in these Indy cars, Taylor. And I figure that should be a fun race too. Pocono with a lot of Indianapolis-esque characteristics, a track that played host to some very entertaining IndyCar races in the 2010s, and a night that should be a lot of fun, I think, especially in iRacing.
It certainly is. I mean, take what we saw here tonight at Twin Ring Motegi and crank it up to 11. It's going to be a very exciting race, of course, with that tunnel turn drivers trying to negotiate through there. We're probably bound to see some very exciting passes as well as accidents off the tunnel turn here at Pocono in a couple of weeks' time when we come back here with the Indy cars.
And oh, by the way, our favorite wild combo of Talladega in the IndyCar is back too. It's the cutoff race for the first round of the Monday Night Racing playoffs next year. So keep your eyes glued February 15th. You will not want to miss the kind of madness that combo in particular produces, where not really any need for restrictor plates. You're just wheeling it at 230 miles an hour like it's, easy walk in the park on a Sunday afternoon. So we'll keep our eyes peeled throughout the season to see who we might be able to tab as a favorite or not going into that race. But for now, it is De Groot v. Busch, round number 5. And you would think with the tire wear, this is slight advantage to the 89 machine, especially given how he's controlled this from the front all night long. But this is a case, Adam, where I think we come back to the classic adage of not being able to count out somebody like Kyle Busch, because I don't really know if anybody outside of Kyle knows how deep his ability to pull from his own talent pool is. When Kyle Busch needs to dig, he can dig from that in ways that few other people can. And it's part of the reason why he's been so successful throughout the years. The raw talent behind the wheel of the number 51, matched by few other drivers in his generation.
Well, and here's what I like about Kyle. Kyle improves throughout the race. He goes to school on his competitors. And he just had a restart in second position behind the group. So he learned a lot there. And he can take that knowledge to what could be our final restart in this shootout we're about to get, and maybe do something different and set De Groot up to take advantage of him. That's just the way Kyle Busch is. He's a cold-blooded competitor. He loves to go out and get it done when the money is on the line. That's the circumstance here. It's hard to bet against him. Throughout the night, De Groot has been the guy, but with Kyle Busch behind him, all bets are off.
The comparison I always make in my head, Taylor Burris, Alabama football is the easy one for me, where you may have Alabama teams that are really good, you may have Alabama teams that aren't necessarily so great, but with every team that Nick Saban puts out on the field, the talent level is there. Any given Saturday or other day of the week they may be playing, they can get the job done, and you never can count them out, even if on paper you might not necessarily think they have a chance. The question will be whether or not we see Busch get that opportunity here in the next few moments. Lights are off the pace car. We will go green flag racing, our first attempt at a green one checker. And De Groot got a very good restart, maybe 2-3 car lengths clear of Kyle Busch, with the snake already in effect off the turn 1.
He certainly did. Got a great start now as they carry their speed, building it up through turns 1 and 2. Kyle Busch gaining some momentum thanks to the help of the slipstream between him and Nick De Groot as they go down the back straightaway. De Groot snaking his way up to the top of the racetrack, now diving it down to the inside through turns 3 and 4. Kyle Busch keeping right on track with him as they come out of turn 4. This should be the white flag.
When do you time the run, Adam Alexander? It will be the big question on Kyle Busch's mind. 1 lap to go in the Carlyle Tools by Napa 125 125, and Busch now with that big swing coming out of turn 2.
One last chance for Kyle Busch to run down Nick DeGroot. Less than a mile to go at Twin Ring Motegi. Kyle Busch won the season opener at Talladega. DeGroot was second. He's the reigning champion, looking for his first win of the season. Here he comes off of turn 4. It's Nick DeGroot who wins the Carlyle Tools by Napa 125 at Twin Ring Motegi.
I think that is exactly what DeGroot wanted, and then some. Revenge accomplished, I think, in a sense, because the score is now even. That's 2 races that Nick DeGroot has beat Kyle Busch head-to-head, 1-2 in, 2 races that Kyle Busch has beat Nick DeGroot in. The score is now even, Taylor Burris, and a storyline I think has been set for the rest of the season. It's the first time we've seen those two go toe-to-toe in IndyCar. I think we're going to see DeGroot and Busch fighting all season long for race wins and potentially for the title, too.
It's a rivalry that we are looking forward to seeing. Not one of those rivalries that you think about where these drivers are going to be aggressively beating and banging, turning each other. No, this is a rivalry of respect and of racing pedigree amongst these two drivers with Nick DeGroot and Kyle Busch. I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out the rest of the season.
And only in iRacing, I think, can you see something like this, Adam, where you have an established real-life driver as talented as Kyle Busch go at it as a 2-time Cup Series champion, winner of multiple Brickyard 400s, the winningest driver in the history of the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. And yet, you come to the sim, and here's a guy, Nick DeGroot, who comes from Syracuse, New York, not the flashy background that Kyle Busch has behind the wheel in real life. Day-to-day is an editor for motorsport.com, and yet, here in the sim, really level playing field between these two. It almost makes me wonder if DeGroot may be the most similar driver to Busch in the sim or real life, because it seems like he's one of the few that can actually give Kyle Busch a run for his money week in, week out, any track they go to in iRacing.
Well, if you're a competitor, we all know you want to beat the best. And I think Kyle Busch has established himself as one of the greats all time, regardless of discipline. And so for Nick DeGroot to go toe-to-toe with him like he did a couple of weeks ago at Talladega in a Cup car and nearly win, and to do it again tonight in an Indy car at Twin Ring Motegi and get it done, I think it speaks to the talent of Nick DeGroot, and it also speaks to his ability to not back down. I think it would have been very easy, and there are many who would have had a slip up in those final couple of laps because you realize who's behind you. It's not just Kyle Busch, it's the reputation that comes with it. And for Nick to hold him off tonight, I think it speaks to his talent, and there's no question, as Taylor pointed out, there's a great mutual respect between these two drivers.
Plenty of talent, but then again, as we mentioned multiple times throughout the broadcast, Nick DeGroot has over 1,000 victories across his iRacing career, and added another one to the list tonight to get the job done for his first victory in Season 2 of Monday Night Racing. That also bumps his all-time win total up to 7. He maintains his lead as the winningest driver in Monday Night Racing history, ahead of Parker Kligerman. We'll take a moment to turn to the full field rundown and show you the final results of this Carlyle Tools by Napa 125. Saw Nick DeGroot take the victory for the first time this season over Kyle Busch, who will maintain the points lead. Anthony Alfredo comes home in the 3rd position. Will Rogers, a very quiet but strong run up to P4. Driver for Space Station Gaming here on the iRacing side of things for the top 5. Same for Preston Pardis. Season's best finish for him. Ford Martin continues his strong start to the season. He finishes 6th. DJ Cummings, who was in the championship 4 seasons ago, right there in the thick of it again. He was 7th. Brennan Beaudoin with his best finish of the season in 8th. Same for Ron Capps, who came home 9th. And Jesse Vaughn in the 28 car, who finished 10th, Taylor.
Coming home in 11th will be Dylan Welch, followed by Steve Affont in 12th position. Seth Eggert will come home in the 13th position, followed by Kyle McFadden in 14th. Joshua Balicki will come home in the 15th position, and Jason Kiefer will come home 16th. Joe Adke will come home in 17th, followed by Gabriel Wood in 18th position. Greg Stump will come home in the 19th position. Stephen Ellis will round out your top 20, James.
21st was Parker Kligerman in the 77. Matthew Stolknecht was 22nd. Connor Daly in his Season 2 debut was 23rd, and Garrett Miller finished in the 24th position. Tough night for Noah Lewis, involved in a few incidents. He was 25th. 26 went to the 64 machine of Drew Welker. Paul Sutton, one of the managing members behind the scenes at Monday Night Racing, helping things go alongside Ford Martin. He finished 27th. Brett Baldock, the reporter for Fox 46 and JZY, the local Fox station in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, finishes 28th, 29th to USA Today for time from Mark Rabillas. And Gary Sexton from Podium eSports completes the top 30, Taylor.
Another driver who had a great run early on but could not close the deal out will be in the 31st position, Joshua Slate. He'll be the last car on the lead lap, followed by Michael Massey, the first car one lap down in 32nd. From KBM, Max Cannon will come home in 33rd, followed by Chris Rice in 34th. Chris Wilner will come home in the 35th position, followed by Rob D'Amico in 36th. Covey Moore had a great run early on, but unfortunately will come home in 37th. Michael Rossi will come home 38th. Raja Karuth had a great run early on, but unfortunately will come home 39th, with IndyCar veteran Ed Carpenter 40th. Jeff Green will come home in 41st, and rounding out your 42-car field, Ryan Vargas.
An impressive field of 42 cars at Twin Ring Motegi, just about stocking out pit road to the gills. But at the end of the day, the revenge he wanted is the revenge he got. Nick DeGroot takes the win in the Carlyle Tools by Napa 125, and he is with Adam Alexander.
Nick, congratulations. Thanks for being with us. And I start with a green-white checker. You're looking for your first win of the year, and you're trying to hold off Kyle Busch. Take us through those last couple of laps.
Yeah, that's no easy task there, having Kyle Busch behind you. And my whole thing was I just needed to get a good enough restart so that by the time he gets that run, we're in turn 3, which is the corner where the cars are really pushing tight. And from that point onward, just protect the bottom. At all costs, protect that bottom. The tires were still pretty fresh because of all the caution laps. And yeah, I thought if I could hold that bottom, maybe Arrow push him, come to the white flag, which we were able to do. He's not going to be able to get a run. And that's basically what we did. It all went to plan. And yeah, it was pretty intimidating having him behind me, but it's awesome that we were able to pull it off, get this win.
A lot of cautions, as you know, in this race tonight, and there were multiple times when you found yourself without track position despite having a fast race car. What was your car like in traffic versus when you were out front tonight?
Yeah, with all those cautions, there's a lot of different strategies, so it was almost inevitable that you were going to end up back there. And yeah, it was real hard to pass in traffic. Even with fresher tires, I found that after a couple laps following a restart, it was incredibly difficult to get around cars. So it just got into my mind that by the end of this thing, you need to have that clean air because clean air is king here. And I'm glad we were able to get it because it was so hard to pass.
Got the big win at Indianapolis to celebrate the championship a year ago. What is it with you in the Indy cars? Because it's an Indy car again that produces your first win of this season.
Yeah, when I first joined iRacing, I did everything. NASCAR, rally, dirt oval, IndyCar, anything that was out there I was doing. Sports cars, and I just took to these. I loved them. And I've been running Indy Fixed all the time for probably the past 2 to 3 years, and it's just my thing. I had this race and I have Pocono circled on the calendar because I knew that if there was a race we were going to win with Factor Back Motorsports, it was going to be this one.
Well, Nick, congratulations. Big win for you. Dominant race car tonight. First win of the season, the reigning champ, and over 1,000 wins in iRacing. It was a fun race to watch. Congratulations on all the success.
Thank you, Adam. Looking forward to the next one.
All right, Nick DeGroot, your winner tonight.
DeGroot, the winner, runner-up, a man that a few folks, I think, watching tonight's broadcast would know. Kyle Busch up in the booth, and we'll turn back to Adam Alexander for a chat with the driver of the number 51 machine.
Kyle, what was the difference on those final 2 laps? I thought on the older tires it was going to be tough, but man, you made that thing exciting at the end.
Yeah, we were trying. We were on some old tires. Those guys, I mean, we had a restart. I don't know when it was. There were so many of them. Maybe 25 to go, 20 to go, something like that. And I got out there a little ways, and they just ran me down and blew my doors off. And I'm like, damn, what the hell was that? So I was worried I was going to drop even farther back than I did. But then we were able to get a couple good restarts there. I was able to get the draft and get back in there. And we were second there, just chasing DeGroot, and just didn't quite have enough turn. And he was really, really good at blocking and bottling up the bottom where my only choice was to try to go around the outside, and I just wasn't going to make that be able to stick, unfortunately.
How hard was it on older tires to keep the thing underneath of you tonight?
It wasn't too bad. I for the last couple of restarts, I aired myself a little bit towards the tight side because I just didn't want to be that guy to spin out in front of the field and crash while trying to come home with a good finish. So I was kind of on the conservative side a little bit there, which I guess having a win already this year, I probably could have been more rambunctious, but I just trying to have a good run and keep the good runs going like we've been having so far. So it's been fun with the Rowdy Energy scheme being able to win week 1 in Talladega, and then here at Motegi to be able to finish second with it. Last week we had Big Machine hand sanitizer on board with the truck, so top 5 in that effort as well too. So it's been a good season so far.
This Monday night racing thing is really cool, and there's guys in it from so many different parts of the racing world. Thank you for what you're doing. A 2-time Cup champion coming out and racing with everybody on a Monday night. That's really cool to see. Appreciate what you're doing to give back, Kyle. Good run tonight.
Yeah, thanks, man. We're having fun, and Ford and the guys have been doing a great job, and it's enjoyable. So hopefully we can keep it going, and next week not look so rough. It's past your bedtime, right, Adam?
It's way past my bedtime. Thanks for pointing that out. Thanks a lot, Kyle.
Yes.
Well, maybe for those who've been in the industry for a little bit, it might be a little bit later than usual, but we have some younger names in Monday Night Racing too that might be a little bit more used to this whole staying up late thing. One of them joins us now in the booth, the man who finished P3, Anthony Alfredo, with us. And Anthony, a lot of us had eyes on Nick DeGroot and Kyle Busch in the closing stages of that race, but we should not take away from the battle that you were having with Will, with Preston, with Ford right at the end. It was impressive to see you all go at it on that final set of restarts to figure out who was going to claim third.
Yeah, I had a blast. It's funny because I don't really have a whole lot of experience in the Indy cars on iRacing, and I don't even think I've ever raced one in an official event other than the Monday Night Racing League events. I think we had the mini Indy 500 last year where I just somehow managed to run really well in that. I think this car just kind of clicked for me a little bit. I really enjoyed driving it. And then we went to Auto Club, and that's where Nick and Kyle, they were just flip-flopped, and I would finish third to them there as well. So I was having flashbacks on that final restart, and I really didn't want to come home third again. But it's still a great day to be up here in the booth with you guys after coming home in the top 3 with a new sponsor on board, Whitetail Smokeless. I'm really happy to have them on our cars for multiple events upcoming here in the Monday Night Racing League. Of course, we have rotating car and track combos, so there'll be more paint schemes to come on different cars, and I'm excited about it. But I did wish that went green at the end. I think when it went green with 10 to go, I was hoping it would go green because I had a really great line in 3 and 4 that was working well for me, and I was making up a lot of time, but just never had the chance to get back to them there, and I didn't have the restart I needed to on that green-white checkered. But top 3 still a great day. Last week was my first race of the season. We came home second. So second and third in the first 2 races I'll take. Consistency is key when it comes to winning a championship. So if we could keep this up, hopefully we'll have a shot at taking home the chip at the end of the year.
Get the consistency to get to the playoffs, to get the championship. It's a step-by-step process. I think the bigger question here is, given your success in these IndyCar races in Monday Night Racing, how long is it before we see some sort of IndyCar event for the eSports Racing League that you can find on Podium on Wednesday nights? Seems like that should be coming soon, no?
I would absolutely love that. After running these cars more and more, I enjoy them more and more, and I would love to have an event of my own through the eSports Racing League. I think it'd be really exciting, and to be honest, this track was a blast. I know there was a lot of accidents in today's race, but the track was fun because it's kind of like Gateway, right? You have 2 completely different ends of the racetrack, and I actually just purchased the track 2 minutes before the session opened, so I had no clue what I was doing around here, not to mention I was trying to figure out the IndyCar, but it was a great time, and I'm sure we could come up with a whole lot of other car track combos for that. But I just appreciate everyone who put on this event, and you guys broadcasting it. It's always fun for us drivers to come hop in and partake in sort of this all-star type event and chase a win together.
we transition from a hidden gem of iRacing to a little bit more famous track in Michigan International Speedway next week, but the super late model. We saw what happened in Wednesday night iRacing on FS1 back in the spring there. It'll be your turn and everybody else's turn in Monday Night Racing to tackle that combo next week. Do you have any early expectations of what we should see next Monday night?
I'm not 100% sure. I think it's going to be really close, tight racing, most definitely, and it'll definitely be a challenge for sure as well. So we're going to have to practice for that one and focus on how to keep our momentum up, because Michigan's definitely a momentum racetrack, and I think in the super late models that's going to be key, especially with, I would imagine, a pretty significant draft. I've never ran there in a super late model, but everything else, of course, the draft is key. So I'm looking forward to that challenge and every other race on the schedule, to be honest. I was just talking to some friends of mine today and telling them the schedule and everything. There's nothing that I'm not looking forward to. Everything's really exciting and looks like it's going to be a great time. And I like the diverse schedule and trying to be a better, more well-rounded driver, as I said last week in the booth. You know, it's just exciting to have something new every week and try to be better and win in different sorts of tracks and in different cars as well. So we'll be working hard to practice and find speed in all these events so that, like you said, we can make it through that step-by-step process of going to the playoffs and hopefully the Final Four and race for a championship.
The momentum builds for Anthony Alfredo's second consecutive podium finish to kick off his campaign in Season 2 of Monday Night Racing, presented by Tufco Flooring. Thanks, as always, for the time, Anthony. We look forward to seeing you in Michigan next Monday night.
Thank you.
So there's the top three. DeGroot, Busch, Alfredo with the big finishes tonight at Twin Ring Motegi. And as we look back on tonight's broadcast, I'll turn first to you, Taylor, for your final thoughts on what we saw at Twin Ring Motegi and what you think we can expect in Michigan next Monday night.
Well, we came what we saw here at Twin Ring Motegi with a lot of excitement. Indy cars here at this track provided a great racing action. We knew Nick DeGroot would definitely be a driver to watch here tonight, as well as Kyle Busch. And of course, who ended up the top two? DeGroot as well as Kyle Busch. So those two definitely put on a great show, even factoring in some issues for Kyle Busch in the middle stages of the race. Now, next week, when we take the super late models to Michigan, that is going to be exciting as well. Pack racing at that 2-mile oval. It's going to be exciting. A lot of drivers going to be trying different lanes because it's a multi-groove track with these super late models. We can see drivers running the top side, the middle lane, and towards the bottom. It's going to be interesting to see who can survive there and utilize the draft to take home the checkered flag next week.
And Adam, to you, your first experience with Monday Night Racing, first broadcast with Podium. I think you came out for a pretty good one at the end of the day, all things considered.
Hey, you can't beat a green-white checker and one of the best in NASCAR going against a guy that has over 1,000 wins in iRacing. I think that's a nice matchup, a good way to end it. Certainly a fun evening watching the Indy cars race at Twin Ring Motegi. And based on what Taylor said and my short knowledge of iRacing with the super late models at Michigan, you guys are in for a real treat next week as well. Thanks a lot for having me on tonight.
A tremendous pleasure to have the voice of the NASCAR Xfinity Series on Fox, Adam Alexander, with us this evening. But the iRacing fun does not stop here this week. One more event coming up tomorrow night, the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series from Richmond Raceway, third round of 6. Top 21 drivers in that series will complete the field for the 19 drivers that have staked in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series from the 2020 campaign. But we'll find out the rest of the field over the course of the next 4 weeks, and that starts tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/Podium eSports at Richmond Raceway, before we come back Monday nights, December 7th, with our standard doubleheader, the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge from the Legends Oval at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Flat, tight, quarter-mile short track. If you know Bowman Gray Stadium in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, same sort of layout that inspired the Legends Oval at Charlotte. So it will be very, very tight racing that I think we'll see in the Grit Ultimate Driver Challenge, 7:30 p.m. next Monday night on the Podium eSports Twitch channel, before we are back on air at 9 p.m. Eastern next Monday night, December 7th, for the super late models at Michigan International Speedway. A special thanks to everyone that helps make Monday Night Racing possible. In particular, this week to Ron Capps and the team at Napa Auto Parts, Napa Racing, and Carlyle Tools for their support of Monday Night Racing. For Ford Martin and Paul Sutton, all the work they do behind the scenes at Monday Night Racing. Mike Case and the team at Tufco Flooring for their support of the series. And then our team at Podium, Cisco Scaramuza, Gary Sexton, John Theodore, and the team in the broadcast trailer tonight. Taylor Burris, our producer Ryan Bauer, and our special guest. A big thank you one more time to Adam Alexander for joining us this evening. I am James Pike, the voice of Podium eSports, saying good night and so long from Twin Ring Motegi. Thanks so much for watching our broadcast. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow night when the Pro Series tackles Richmond Raceway.
So what do you